done. Turn PlayStation's kingdom into a graveyard of fun. You bet all your chips on the long service spree, but the fans only asked for Bloodborne on PC. You whisper to Aloy, you'll lead us to gold, but all that we got was the same game result. Like your service dreams, oh they burned in the night, like a Discord server in a fanboy fight. Spin, spin, Herman, dance through the fire. You sold us the dream, now you're stuck in the mire. Light service graveyards, abandoned and cold, like a PS portal nobody holds. Of gas stations climbing so high, but no one can see through the cash grab disguise. Fair games, oh fair, what a terrible name. Stealing from the rich, Sony's playing that game. You said lip service is future, just give me some time. But now you're demoted, oh what a decline. Naughty Dog stranded, the last of us cursed. The only thing alive is your PR rehearsed. Spin, spin, Herman, your fate is unkind. Ryan has left you, now watch Sony blind. Your horizon obsession, your service collapse. Your legacy's buried in overpriced scraps. A decade you reigned, but the players withdrew. Aloy can't save you, she's also confused. The fans wanted Kratos, they wanted a thrill, but you chased dollar signs and swallowed the pill. Spin, spin, Herman, your tango is done. They stripped you of power, they fired the gun. The studios are tired, the players all fled. Your legacy lives, but only in red. Spin, spin, Herman, your tango is done. They stripped you of power, they fired the gun. The studios are tired, the players all fled. The legacy lives, but only in red. Imagine a hero shooter where the hero never showed.
That's most definitely what's up.
Imagine a game with a player base that just refused to grow.
Catch me outside, how about that?
A 5v5 hero shooter with gameplay that's just okay. And characters that remind me of Tupperware and white bread. No, I'm not talking about Overwatch. Please stop bringing up Overwatch. This game is not Overwatch. It's actually something else. Imagine a game with a story that no one watches. A game that costs $40 that Sony totally botches. It has all my favorite characters, like Lemmy, Dawn, and Craig. At least, I think that's what their names are. I never bothered to check. Concord like the grave, your legacy is safe. As a game that no one played, and a price that no one paid.
16 times the detail.
Boop-a-doop-ba, dee-da-doop-da, scoop-a-boop-ba, beep-beep-beep-beep-beep, phlegm. Concord was about as good as accidentally peeing on your own leg. Concord, we're here to lay you to rest. We know you tried your best. You copied so much cool stuff just to turn out lame in the end. I'll never forget my favorite moments, like when Hot Sauce Guy jumped. Remember when he jumped? That was really cool. A rat just ran by on my desk, and even the rat didn't want to play Concord, even though I blessed him with the chance. The $40 he could afford, but the rat just stared on in a trance. Rat, 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 rat. Concord's dead. Rat, 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 rat. Concord's dead. The Costco guys made more money than you. They were just on Jimmy Fallon too. Imagine Lennox being on Jimmy Fallon, because I literally can't. The rat on my desk is eating all my Cheerios and grapes, and also Concord is dead. Concord like the grave. Your legacy is safe as a game that no one played, and a price that no one paid. Rat-a-ta-ta beep-a-da. Skim, milk, the rat freak, doo-da, doo-da. A guy said he really liked it, and then a bunch of rats ate his face. That's the sound he made when Concord passed away. I wish things turned out different, but either way I'm getting paid. Concord's dead, Concord's dead. And boy is my face red. When the game came out, everybody overslept. Concord's dead, Concord's dead. Holy crap, Lois, Concord's dead. When the game out, people played everything else instead.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Welcome, welcome, welcome. 'Tis going to be a good day. Dare I say? I think so. I think so. I will say, just as a heads up, our bit rate is a little bit lower than normal, just for now, because I'm uploading something to Jacob at the moment. So we're a little congested on the network because my internet still sucks. But we're getting there. We're getting there. I've seen the crews in my neighborhood working on the new fiber they're installing. It's just taking forever. I get it. It's complicated and there's a lot to do. I respect it. But if you were in my position and you had to pay $300 freaking dollars a month for really crappy, inconsistent internet, and you use the internet for a living, you'd probably be giddy and excited too for new internet. But what are you gonna do? Starlink, I do have a Starlink. I have a little, the little guy, but the thing with Starlink is, for one, the latency is all over the place. It's way better than it used to, but it's inconsistent for sure. And as a result, it's just unpredictable where it's going to go. But, I don't know. I'm back using the wired stuff because the max upload is higher. It's just, again, like, it'll randomly drop. They'll just be like, yeah, for like 6 hours, there's no internet service, or it's terrible. And, you know, it's 0.95 down, 0.8 up. But this is the problem, is I think they know everybody in the neighborhood is going to switch to the new service. And so they've just kind of given up. You know, like, they've just checked out. They're like, why would we bother spending money fixing the internet when everybody's just going to leave? So they just, like, they've totally mentally checked out. It's really frustrating. Really, gosh darn frustrating. I'll tell you what. Boone, 14 months. Ooh, Bay, B. Thank you. Thank you. Glad I'll be able to catch a stream before my appendix is removed in the next 2 hours. Thanks for the company, Luke. Jeez. Well, for one, best of luck. Knocking on wood on your behalf. That's crazy. I think Jacob actually got his appendix out. Jacob should be in here. Maybe he has advice on how to overcome that. Because my goodness, that's crazy. Yes. 07, indeed. 07. You got this. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Jacob has like fun, like, you know, sometimes you get something done, a procedure, this or that, and then you learn something really unintuitive that you're like, ooh, I wish somebody had told me that beforehand. I don't know. Damn, he must really not like it. Yo, Luke, did you get to play Expedition 33 early? No, No. I was in talks with them. The thing is, like, here's the weird spot with what I do, okay? Because I talk about games on stream, not just in videos. Like, if you're doing just a YouTube channel and you're making videos and you go to a preview event, you just kind of don't talk about whatever you played at the preview in those videos, and it's fine. When you're streaming like I do, and people might ask you tons of questions about stuff, it gets really hard to like be coy, you know? Like if you, hypothetical, let's say that there's some studio out there, we'll call it Studio Gibble. And Studio Gibble is making an amazing pirate game that I love, okay? And then they like invite me to do a preview or something for it, kind of like this. And I go and I play it and I have thoughts on it, but they're like, don't talk about it for 6 months or 3 months or a month, whatever. But then the next day there's a bunch of leaks and people are asking me all about it in chat. And it's like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about it? It becomes really tough to do the streams without just being like, there's a bird over there. You know, it gets weird. It gets really weird, which is why we've had to turn down like preview opportunities before because it was restrictive. In this case, to be clear, in this particular case, it just didn't really work out we basically had something else that kind of took precedent, but there's been a problem with other previews that have come across our desks in the last few months where we've had to turn them down because it's like, I think doing this would make it so I couldn't do like coverage of these games that I'd want to. You know, I actually had a thought. I was like, you know what would be big brain super genius levels? Imagine if, like this, to be clear, this didn't happen. I don't think they'd ever do this. But I was like, imagine if for like fair game $, okay? They're like, Luke's going to make a bunch of videos making fun of us because it's going to be funny. So we can't let that happen. So what if we invite Luke to a preview event, have him sign an NDA, and then he can't talk about fair game $, for like 6 months because he's seen it. He's played it. He can't talk about it because he would break NDA. What if we did that? Like, that would be big brain, right? Wouldn't that be brilliant? It's like, ooh, we'll lock him up. And imagine if they did that with like a bunch of people where they're like, hey, Asmon, you want to come check out this game behind closed doors? Just sign this NDA. All of a sudden, can't talk about it. Wouldn't that be brilliant? Like super genius level 180 IQ stuff. I don't think anybody's ever done that, but I'm cautious about it. I'm like, So whenever we've had the opportunity to do a preview, if it's something that I plan on like talking about a lot, I'm always like, I need to be able to at least say I've played it and I can't talk about it. Because some previews are like, yeah, tell people you went to a preview event. Like the AC Shadows thing. They said, take a picture of your screen. Like say, hey, I played AC Shadows, impressions coming on this day. That's fine, because at least I can tell you if you ask about it. So I played it, I just can't talk about it yet. The awkward thing is when you've played it and you're not allowed to say you've played it. You know, it's like, no, you cannot tell anyone you even previewed X. You just have to be quiet about it. And it's like, oh, it's really, really hard to make videos, you know, speculating and thinking about something when you know the answers, you know? Let's see. I'm surprised AC Shadows didn't try doing that with all the bad publicity they've been getting. No, like for AC Shadows at this point, I'm half convinced that they summoned some vengeful spirit, because that game has just attracted all the bad luck for every game in the last year. Like it's just absorbed all of it. It's like Concord came out and that absorbed a lot of the bad luck and was just a disaster. And then after that, it's just been AC Shadows absorbing everything for everybody. And it's really bizarre because it's like, how on earth do they have another thing go wrong? But it's just, it's some sort of curse. Maybe Kojima did something. Of any person in the gaming industry, doesn't Kojima seem like the person that would stir up some vengeful spirit? I think so. I think so. Let's see. I honestly thought Fair Game $sign was canceled. I think we all did, but that's the thing, dude, is Fair Game $sign is like one of the few games still standing. It's like that, the Horizon MMO, and then the Horizon like Monster Hunter kind of spin-off game. Those allegedly, like, they're still out there somewhere. They delayed Fair Game $sign to 2026, but they think they have something there, which gets me like even more intrigued. You know, like if they just dumped it out this year and were like, let's just get it out the door, then at least, you know, I wouldn't be too surprised. But the fact that they're delaying it, giving them more time, makes me go, what are they doing? Like, what are they changing? Because we haven't seen it. By the time we end up seeing it, the last trailer will have been like 2.5, 3 years before. So I'm like, they still think Fair Game $sign could be successful. They're pouring money into it. What do they see in that game that nobody else sees? You know, being used to your usual stream quality, I want to throw up right now. This bit rate's horrible. I know. I'm sorry, my friend. We're gonna get through it together. It's almost there. The problem is we have to get this thing like done. So either the option was I just delay stream by like another hour and just let it upload, or I was like, yeah, we can hop on, we'll talk, we'll hang out for a little bit, and then when it's done uploading, we'll do that. Hope you're having a good day. I am. Thank you, my friend. Oh, I am. OMG, it's Elijah, 23. Love the name. Luke, been playing through KCD2. Usually have a hard time getting into long RPGs, but I think I might be in my top 10 favorite games of all time. Thanks for the recommendation. I'm glad you're enjoying it, my friend. Much love. That's wonderful. And thank you for the sub with Prime. That's great. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's so good. It's so good. Dare I say it's baller? It's baller. Yeah, I've seen people ask, they're like, have you played Monster Hunter? Have you played KCD2? I think what it is, some people in chat have been like, oh, they're trolling. No, I think honestly, some people just don't see the main channel stuff or the big channel stuff. They're just familiar with the live streams and the live clips and stuff, in which case you probably didn't see that like I posted a big review or that type of thing. But yeah, played KCD2, love it dearly, can't wait for hardcore mode. And Monster Hunter, also played it, really good, runs like hot donkey ass. I feel vindicated now that the game's out because everybody else is kind of realizing that I wasn't just trying to be a hater. Like, for real life. It's got only 57% of the 60,000 reviews are positive. And it's all people complaining about the graphical quality on like medium and high settings and the performance. Because the performances suck. Like it does suck. We said it during the betas and the demos. They assured us they would improve it. They didn't. And then the PC port also runs like crap. And you know, people were saying that, Luke, you're just trying to hate. You're just trying to hate. I'm like, I'm showing you the clips. I don't know what you want from me. I'm showing you the clips. Like, do you think I faked the footage somehow? Like, what are you talking about? It's like that one guy when Starfield came out and I had all those, like, I didn't have a ton of bugs compared to normal Bethesda stuff, but I had like a good number of bugs and I showed the bugs on screen. And one guy in the comment section was saying that like I manually faked the bugs and stuff. Like, you pretty clearly, you know, went into the game's code and altered it. And I'm like, I'm showing you the video. Like, how much time do you think I have on my hands? Where like, I can go, and also you think I'm way more talented than I am to be able to do that. Like, yeah, this guy is just gently pleasuring himself. Ew. Old Studio Luke. Where's the other one? Oh yeah, these null objects floating in the sky. I don't know if you can see them from the compression, but wrong key. Yeah, these like floating orbs were in the game at random locations. Those aren't supposed to be rendered, but they are for some reason.
$10 through Super Chat. Just get a RTX 5090, peasants. Then you'll see no performance hits.
Dude, some people literally go, "Oh, you have any performance issues? Brokey." It's like, what the hell are we talking about? I feel like nowadays there are both maybe unreal or unreasonable expectations in terms of performance, and then there's also, I think, very reasonable expectations that are just totally not met. So some people think that every game on their like 1070 should run at 4K 60 with ray tracing stuff. And it's like, no, that's just not going to happen. That's unrealistic. But then on the flip side, there's other people who are like, hey, I have a 3070. I feel like I shouldn't have to play on low, upscaling to 1080p. So it's rendering at 540 using DLSS on performance mode or something. I think that's unrealistic. And it's like, yeah, that's a totally reasonable expectation that your 3070 should be able to run the game at least. So you have two extremes, and it's really bizarre because it feels like we do get games that are well optimized, like KCD2, where it shows this amazing scalability, where it runs on an RG Ally and then it also runs on a super high-end PC, and they both look great. But then you see stuff like Monster Hunter. And the frustrating thing is, and this is what we said on stream on Friday, like delaying a game by like 3 months for some of these big games can cost tens upon tens of millions of dollars. Not to mention the wasted money from like marketing that you just lose, you know, because you bought TV ad time, you canceled all those ads, you only get refunded a little bit, that type of thing. So for like AC Shadows going from November to February initially, they said in their earnings call that cost them like $25-30 million. That one delay. And KCD2 seemingly had like a year of polish. So imagine a game like Monster Hunter Wilds that maybe needed another year of polish of like recoding stuff to get it performing well. Probably not an actual year, but like 6 months or something. That would cost them tens upon tens of millions of dollars. And so for them, they're like, do we really need to do that? And when you look at the Steam charts and the sales numbers, I'm not sure they will conclude that they needed to delay it, because they still sold millions upon millions upon millions of copies. What could wake them up to it is if a lot of these people that are leaving negative reviews go and then return their copy and only buy it once it's performing well. Then they would wake up, because every time you return a game on Steam, it loses the publisher money because Steam keeps their cut, because they did what they were supposed to do. They shouldn't be punished because your game was broken. So the publisher loses money every single time you return a game. And that would wake them up. That would wake them up. But what you're seeing in the Steam reviews even is like, you know how it shows the playtime, where it's people that are playing the game being like, yeah, it runs terrible, I'm really disappointed by it. And then you look at it and it's like 2 hours as of the time of the review, 250 hours played. And it's like, okay, so that's not gonna, like, they're not gonna care because they still got your money, you still played it. Yeah, you complained about it, but they're just gonna move on, you know? It's really unfortunate. And maybe that's the bigger problem, is that there's not enough, in my opinion, there's not enough recourse or perhaps punishment when it comes to bad releases, technically. Like even some games that run terribly, like a Jedi Survivor, you know, they perform well, and so they just are going to do it next time because they can get away with it. Why delay your game by months if you can get away with it? And that's why you might be like, well, then why did they delay AC Shadows? I think they delayed AC Shadows because Ubisoft knows they can't get away with it. Some studios, publishers can get away with a lot more in certain aspects, like performance, than others. Bethesda's thing for years was like the games run like crap and they're buggy, but that's the Bethesda charm. So they could get away with it for a long time, and then eventually it caught up with them. But some studios and publishers have different standards that they're held to for sure. Yeah, and it gives and it takes. JRP GTA 6. I mean, with GTA 6, I think that's an example of a game that the expectations are super high. So if that game releases with any performance issues, with any bugs, it will be shocking. People will be stunned, you know? Be like, what the hell happened? What in the hell happened? But to their credit, they released a benchmark so people can at least try it. But in my experience, the benchmark doesn't give you a great indication of like the full game's performance. But it's disappointing to see them release the game like this, especially when last year their spring release Dragon's Dogma also had a bunch of performance issues. Also ran like crap, you know, and it was disappointing to see that Capcom, they're putting out games people want and people like, but the polish is super inconsistent. They'll release Resident Evil 4 remake, really polished, really solid. And then they release like, you know, Monster Hunter and Dragon's Dogma, and they run like poop. And it's like, where's the consistency? Like, why are you letting this team get away with something unoptimized, but this team is polishing? I don't get it. But either way, they're kind of getting away with it. So what are you going to do, I guess? What are you going to do? My PC was struggling with Dragon's Dogma 2 on a 3060 Ti. I mean, if I recall correctly, I think a lot of it was, with that in particular, was CPU bound, wasn't it? It was like specifically the NPC simulation is where it struggled, which is why in the cities it started tanking. Because it was always the cities. They did update and like drop a patch that did make it run way better, but yeah. Okay. Got that. I've got that. Boop, boop, boop. Sorry. Saw a video of a guy trying to do push-ups. I don't think I can show it because YouTube probably be upset. But he had a glass bottle, and then he had 2 dinner plates, and he was holding the dinner plates like this with the edges resting on the mouth of the bottle. And then he had his feet up on a little wall behind him, and he was trying to do push-ups, holding the plates with all the weight down on the top of the bottle for some reason. And shocker, the plates slipped, and so he just slips, and his face goes straight into the like brick table he made for the bottle to sit on. It's a little funny. It was a little funny. Also, while that's almost done uploading. Let me show you this, because this is a proof of concept thing. That's almost exactly something I mentioned on stream the other day. That I was like, ooh, I want that. Samsung showed off a bunch of new gaming devices, and like these are proof of concept devices, okay? These are not like real products that you can buy. These are prototypes and like just seeing what works. Do not touch, as you can see. But they have this thing called Flex Gaming. You guys remember on stream I mentioned how cool it would be to have something like this? I was like, I want a portable gaming device that I can like put in my pocket or something I can just bring easily with me, but that also has a big screen that can play modern games, because most modern UI in games is not made for smaller screens. It's made for like big 65-inch, 75-inch TVs or monitors that you sit close to. So the UI just isn't built to scale that way. And it can be really frustrating. But if you have the big screen, you could do it. And this is a prototype device they've built with the folding screen. So it folds into... I'm sitting very low in my camera. It folds into a little form factor, and then you can see this is also just clever. They have the buttons routed, but it has like a little punch out in the middle that goes down low, and that's so the joystick on the other side can fit into that space. And so it folds flat, which is also just super, super clever. I love that. The crease would be crazy. Yeah, Samsung's crease on their foldables has been a consistent problem. I had the Z Fold 3 back in the day, and I even bought the Z Fold 6 and tried using it, but the fold crease was really bad. Other phones don't have that problem though. Like the Pixel, I don't think Pixel Fold doesn't have anywhere near as bad of a crease. It's just a Samsung thing. They haven't really settled on how to get it taut enough to get rid of the crease, but a cool idea. And this is something, if it were polished up, if it was somewhat capable of playing games, even if we get to the point where like cloud gaming is, you know, really, really solid, and this was just like a portable GeForce Now machine, that still is a cool concept. I think that's cool. Probably costs like $5,000, but yeah, I mean, you can see this. I think this is the Z Fold 6 right here. You can see the crease. Here, they left the device slightly folded, so it's like, ooh, yeah, it folds. But this, I believe, is the Z Fold 6 phone, and you can see how intense that crease is. And other folding phones don't have that bad of a crease. It's just the Samsung ones. For like 4 generations, it's been bad, man. You eventually get used to it, and you can ignore it pretty easily, which is, you know, props. That's cool. Oh yeah, they also have stretchable screens. This is a use case I genuinely have no idea where you would ever need it. Like, it's a screen that specifically is designed so it can stretch, and you like push on it. I cannot think of a situation where you would need that, but maybe it's the type of display you're supposed to wrap around something, but even then, like, I don't know how practical or useful that is, you know? I don't know. But anyway, oop, I see what I did. I was trying to zoom back out, but instead I was pressing Control minus, which just zoomed out the entire screen. So, oops. Little cheat, Control 0, it unzooms back to the default. Okay. Okay. We do have a couple of things we're going to talk about today once our bitrate is improved. For example, there's a guy named Brandon McNamara. Does anyone know who that is? Before I spoil it. Does anyone know a Brendan McNamara? Ring a bell? Ring a bell? No? That's okay. That's okay. If you Google him, you're going to get the wrong guy. But the actual guy is this fella right here. He is actually the former creative director at Team Bondi. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. And he just got a new job. Where do you think that new job is? Where would be in a very, very interesting spot for him to get hired at? Costco. Great answer. He's been rehired by Rockstar and is being put in charge of a new studio that's being rebranded as Rockstar Australia. Realistic. We'll talk about this, but realistically, he's probably just being hired back on to like do support for GTA 6 Online. You know, that's probably what it is, because it's never what you want. But there's a chance that this is like, ooh, they're gonna bring him back to relaunch LA Noire, you know, or something. Unrealistic, but
Victor
possible.
Torres donated $10 through Super Chat.
Thank you.
Hey Luke, hope you're having a great day.
I am.
Have you or anyone else you know heard anything on the game Little Devil Inside? I remember hearing about that game when the PS5 launched and then nothing.
Little Devil Inside. It's one of the subreddit posts. Whatever happened to Little Devil Inside? Hanging out with Silk Song. Still hanging out at the very bottom of my wish list. They shared an update 6 months ago. They also apparently updated their Kickstarter. We plan to provide you with periodic updates on what we've worked on for the past, starting with the weapon upgrade design. So they dropped this at this point a year ago. Have they updated their Kickstarter since then? February of last year. No, they've just gone quiet. I don't know, man. That's weird. Hopefully they're just working away and they're doing a good job. And they're going to get there eventually. But yeah, whenever you have a game that just goes silent for like a year or two at a time, it's always a little bit like, we good, fam? We good? Especially when they raised like $300,000 and then they're going quiet. Like that's, I don't love that. I don't love that. I'd hope to hear more. We'll see. But thank you for that super chat. Yeah, I vaguely remember the art style being, I remember seeing that and being like, oh, the art style is kind of cool, but not hearing from them for so long after they get a big bag is always a little worrisome. Let me go back up to the top. Joaquin, thank you for 25 months. Ooh, baby, that's baller. Hope you're well, Luke. Curious if you played any of the Game of Thrones King's Road game and your thoughts on it. I have not played any of it myself. Is it officially out yet? No, it's Q2. I don't know. Would you guys be interested in me covering that? I think they reached out to us. Would you be interested in me covering that game? It's that Game of Thrones story-driven action-adventure RPG, bringing the world of Westeros to life with remarkable detail and never before seen scale. It's being developed by Netmarble Neo, who previously did Solo Leveling Arise, but that's also not even out yet. I don't know. Do you think that'd be worth covering? I don't know. It's one of those where like it's either going to be surprisingly awesome or it's going to be like totally lackluster. I feel like there's not much of a middle ground, but I don't know. Maybe we check it out. Maybe we just make a video on it or look at it on stream or something. Westside Maverick, thank you for the 2. We're getting a 9-hour long KCD 1+2 critique, right? Dude, just let me roll up my imaginary sleeves and get right to it. Maybe that would be a fun excuse to replay both games, like hardcore mode. Oh no, you're giving me ideas. That would be fun. To do like a hardcore critique of this hardcore thing. That could be cool. Axel, have I watched any previews of Expedition 33? Not yet. I do have it pulled up though. Once our bitrate goes back up, we can check it out. Okay. Yeah, thank you guys for the super chats and everything. What I'll do, fam, is I will turn the it's gonna make me log back in. I will turn the text to speech to 10 instead of 20. That way we can maybe get some of that flowing, some of that good stuff flowing. And I've heard people like when they have the chance to show up on screen, like in stream clips and stuff. So why not try this? Why not try this? Where YouTube, super chats. Okay. Yeah, it'll alert on screen if it's the equivalent of $5 or over. Otherwise, it just gets flooded. You know, it's just nonstop stuff. Okay. Oh no, I've got it set there. Okay, we're there already. Boom, save settings. Love it. Also, Joseph Fares dropped one of the funniest little trailers for Split Fiction. Dude, this guy is the hero we need. Just watch this. Watch this. This is just funny.
Our new kick-ass co-op game Split Fiction is here. And don't forget, with the Friends Pass, you only need to buy 1 copy of the game to play with your friend online. But I've heard your feedback. Some of you out there don't have a friend to play with. But don't you worry, I got you covered. Say hello to Split Fiction Friend Edition. Hey. The world's first game to ship with a real live friend to play with. You also wish you had a friend to play with. All right, I'll get you one right away. Or you could join our Discord and find a friend there. Probably a lot easier. Greg, in the box. Let's go.
Are you sure this is safe?
Absolutely sure. Don't worry, my friend.
The disclaimer, dude.
Let's go, let's go.
Hello? Hello?
Friendship shipped to you. Yeah, if you like never played It Takes Two, it's what, again, to their credit, EA Originals, which is the publisher of this. I mean, EA publishes this. They only make you buy 1 copy of the game to play through the whole thing. So like if you have a buddy or a friend or girlfriend, but whatever, and you want to play with them, you only buy 1 copy of the game, and then they download the Friend Pass like version of the game, and then you can play through the whole thing together. Or you can do couch co-op, which is, you know, probably ideal, but it's just really, really cool. Like it's one of the more like pro-consumer things I've seen in the industry in a long time, and it's just super cool. I like the disclaimer: for entertainment purposes only. Do not attempt. He's just joking. Don't worry, he's fine. It's funny. Joseph. Oh, Joseph. What a treasure. What an absolute treasure. I also like how in Krobikat's video, he's like the first shot. Remember this? We never watched this on stream. This was the Krobikat video. The man with no award.
Actually, you should have the award. Look what you have put together, man. Like,
Thank you.
this guy should. It's crazy. It's 5 years. Imagine in 10 years what you will do.
Back to you, Geoff.
I am the monster you created. You ripped out all my parts. And worst of all, for me to live, I gotta kill the part of me that saw
Really
that
professional.
I needed you more.
Very sad. Serious.
I hope you know we had everything when you broke me and left these pieces.
Mr. White donated $9.99 through Super Chat. Luke, do you think GTA 6 will have Bad Boys reference since it's based in Miami?
Oh, at least one. Yeah, for sure. At least one. Probably a few, frankly. I mean, with our luck. I think that game's going to be crammed full of little bitty things like that. The toughest thing, though, is that they've been rocking with, what was I going to type in? There we go. They've been rocking with like an insane number of years they've been working on it. And so like, and culture moves so quickly now that a cultural reference from 2021 feels super cringe, right? So they have to somehow mock and make fun of like American culture, which is what they're really good at, but make it timely. Like it's not an easy thing for them. No doubt. But I'm excited to see how they do it, because the world just moves quickly now. You know, the world moves quickly now. So they've got to have these cultural references that make sense. Like they're probably going to make fun of NFTs and crypto bros a ton in the game. I'm sure there's going to be stuff like that. But I'm wondering how recent they can get with their references. You know, I'm not sure.
I want you to hurt like you hurt me today. I want you to lose like I lose when I play What could have been? Oh, what could have been? Don't you love who I am? What we could have been?
Time.
I couldn't care.
Angry Joe. I feel like he just had a collection of like a bajillion clips of Geoff Keighley through the years. And he was like, I got to make a video like this. A true honor. Thank you, Krabby Cat. This looks like a tribute video somebody made for his funeral. The original cut of the video was over 5 minutes, but Krabby Cat was told to wrap it up. Okay. That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny. Plot twist, Geoff is Krabby Cat. That actually would be one of the greatest plot twists of all time. Imagine if Geoff was the one cutting the clips making fun of like the Game Awards every year. That would be brilliant, dude. I do like, here's the thing. We meme on Geoff all the time because it is funny, you know? And the Wrap It Up meme is really funny. The Dorito Pope meme is really funny. You know, there's plenty of material. But the reason there's plenty of material is because he's been around forever. Like, what, 15, 20 years he's been active. And he's made plenty of mistakes, no doubt. But he also has, in my opinion, done a lot to help push the industry forward. And even though we make fun of like the Game Awards for trying too hard to appeal to Hollywood, which I still stand by. I think we don't need Hollywood pretty clearly. But especially because Hollywood is always at the Game Awards trying to get gamers to like go watch their new cringy movie or something. It's always really weird and just out of place. But I think like that is a testament to how big like the Game Awards have become. And to his credit, when E3 died, he made Summer Games Fest. So we still get a show in the summer to get big game reveals and trailers and stuff. Like that's great. That's cool. And I, you know, maybe it's just like my family and how I grew up, but when we like and love something or someone, we tend to poke fun and like mess around with them and roughhouse with them. And that's kind of what we tend to do. Like I used to make fun of Yang Ya all the time because he's just a funny guy. And he also like with the cyberpunk stuff, I feel like deleting all of his cyberpunk videos just felt weird because he had hyped up the game a lot and then pretended like, I don't know, it felt weird. So we joked about it a lot, but then he put out a video explaining kind of what went down. I was like, honestly, okay, fair point. So we're good. We're cool. We're chill. But when I like somebody or appreciate them, we mess with them, you know, we screw around with them. The day that I stop talking about someone is the day you can be like, oh, Luke doesn't like them. Luke doesn't want to talk about them, acknowledge them. Oh, that's when you know there's a problem. That's when you know there's a problem. Yeah. He helped put respect on the gaming industry, bring it to the mainstream. Yeah, and I mean, you can't argue with the results. The Game Awards is gigantic. And when you say X game won Game of the Year, you know exactly what show is being talked about. You know you're talking about Geoff's show. You're not talking about, oh, Eurogamer's Game of the Year. You know what you're talking about, you know? Banana Brains. I'm still baffled at how a man with negative charisma has managed to be the announcer guy for an entire industry. In his defense, sort of, he's gotten better. It used to be that he would look at the floor nonstop, and he's gotten better. You know, he can make eye contact with the camera, and he's better than he was like even 5 years ago. I think he's actively worked on it. But when like I remember it was E3 2019 when I went, and let me see if I can find it. E3 panel, Troy Baker. Troy Baker was hosting a panel. I don't remember what the panel was on. Oh man. But basically, like, you remember the Todd Howard Elon Musk thing? E3 Coliseum, that's what they called it. It was not a panel, it was the Coliseum. Is that how we spell it? This I think this was it. But basically, like, this took place almost right after Geoff had done, or maybe right before. It was right around the same time that Geoff did the panel interview with Todd Howard and Elon Musk. And Geoff, like, you could tell he wanted to do that panel because he wanted to meet Elon Musk and he wanted to meet and be on stage with Todd Howard. But he just, like, he wasn't that great at it, but it was fine. And then Troy Baker gets up, and love or hate Troy Baker, dude is overflowing with charisma, and he did a phenomenal job hosting the panel. And I was like, see, we need Troy Baker to, like, host the Game Awards. The next year, have Laura Bailey do it. The next year, have Nolan North do it. Like, the next year, have Roger Clark do it. Then Christopher Judge. Like, have some of the most recognizable performers who have a lot of charisma and understand, like, stage presence and that type of thing. Have them run the show. Do that. Like, why not? That to me seems like a slam dunk. Yeah, you're hiring a host or something. You could have Joseph Fares do it. Wouldn't that be fun? If he would be willing to. Like, I think there's a lot of fantastic options and opportunities, but I do think that to a certain extent, part of the deal with Geoff is that he's built this whole thing up, but he's built it up. And at this point, he's like, yeah, I built it up, so I'm the one on stage. It's sort of the Geoff show as well. And to a certain extent, like, can you argue with that? Like, he has built it up. If he wants to run it, clearly people will still watch. I think the show would be, like, even better if Troy Baker were to host it, for example. But obviously people still watch. So I guess, if it ain't broke, don't fix it is his perspective. But I do think eventually there will need to be a point where they choose to pivot that direction, because he's not going to, maybe he plans to, but I wouldn't think he's going to be hosting the show when he's like 70 years old. So eventually he's going to have to figure out where the next phase is, like where they're going. But I don't know. What are you talking about? Jesus Christ. Anyway, he should just have co-hosts. Well, I think that's where they would ease it in. I think you start there and then you ease into a full dedicated host, where it is probably where it ends up. I think it's helpful to have somebody come in and host the entire event with, like, smaller mini presenters and stuff, which is what they already do. Like, remember, I think it was last year, wasn't it, where they randomly had Timothée Chalamet presenting Game of the Year? It's like, what? It's like, why is he here? Did I miss something? And I get it. He's a gamer. Like, at least he says he's a gamer. But it felt very out of place and very, very weird. It was odd. It was odd. I don't know. Luke and Jor host it. I don't think they would want me hosting it. I would watch it if Jor hosted it. That would be fun, I think. I think to a certain extent, in order for the Game Awards to work, you have to have a certain amount of, like, you got to play the game. And part of the game is the sort of corporate side of it. You know, the part of what they're doing is they're selling ad space to big sponsors and to big publishers and stuff who are paying lots of money, by some accounts like $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to play their trailer during the show. And so if you're somebody who's, like, well known for being super outspoken against certain publishers or practices or monetization or, you know, all of that stuff, you could get to a point where, like, hey, this corporate sponsor doesn't want to be there if this person's going to be hosting or this person's going to be talking about it. And it's like, I get it. Like, you got to kind of, like, nod and go along with the party line. It's just how it is. Thank you, Michael, for the 5. Have you seen any coverage of Dune Awakening? It's going to be funny watching people that don't know the Dune experience, how shields work. I've not dug into it a lot myself. I've seen, like, the occasional video come across my feed, and, you know, some people talk about it. But yeah, I've not really dug into it a ton. We'll see. I mean, the guys that are making it obviously have experience in building a game similar to it, so I think they'll know what they're doing. But Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the cookie crumbles. Yeah. Yeah. Luke hosting the Game Awards would be like Ricky Gervais hosting the the Globes or Golden Globes, except every joke is at or about Todd. Yeah. Let's be honest. Let's be real. Yeah, probably. It would be, I think, funny for about 30 seconds, and then everybody would be like, bro, stop. And I wouldn't. I'd keep going. Oh, man. Let's see. Russell, also thank you for that one. I have not heard anything further about Ace Combat. No, I have not. Unfortunately. Damn, my eyes be itchy. Imagine Luke having to give Todd an award wearing the same leather jacket. I mean, man, that would be pretty funny. Let's be honest. Like, can we just be real? That would be pretty funny. And then I just like refuse to acknowledge it, and we just pretend like I don't recognize that we're wearing the same thing. I think that'd be funny. I think so. Oh, okay. Todd Howard's evergreen. Well, dude, he's going to be there like, I mean, every year he's there, but they're going to have a ramp up for their marketing probably in the next 2 years for Elder Scrolls 6. And then they're going to have a ramp up for Fallout 5. And, you know, they'll get around to Starfield. I think Todd said in that interview, he was asked about his retirement plans. And he said, at least, yeah, I'm at least getting through Fallout 5. Which, to be clear, is like another decade away. By that point, he's probably, I don't know how old he is. He's probably in his 50s, right? I don't know how old he is. He's 55. Lower Macungie Township. Yeah, he's 55. So he's going to be 65, most likely, by the time Fallout 5 comes out. Probably ready for retirement. So at that point, like, does he want to do another 4 or 5 years before, like, Starfield 2? Probably not. So there's a very strong possibility that Todd never touches Starfield again, you know, which would be crazy. What surprises me is that Troy Baker is also 48. He's almost 50. He looks good. He looks good. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I think what it is I think of some of these people from like interviews and videos I've seen of them. And so I think back and I'm like, I remember the video of them from, you know, 2012 or 2015 or something when it's way back in the day. And so it's always surprising. It's the same thing when you find out that like, what's your guess for how old Kojima is? What a picture, dude. What an absolute picture. He's just got a little sass. He's got a little sass right there. Oh, geez, what is happening? He is a strong, resilient 61. Yeah. 107. Yeah, he's got the wisdom of a 107-year-old. He looks thrilled. Oh, that's the... You have no idea what I'm gonna do to you face. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Enough stalling. Let's talk about some stuff. Okay? Here's what we're gonna do. As we rev into this, I'm going to set the text to speech minimum to whatever that is, $20, whatever color grade of super chat that is. That will interrupt it and show up. Otherwise, $5 super chats show up on screen. But I'm just setting it higher so that we don't get flooded with, like, in the middle of this segment, a bunch of stuff. Okay. But if you want to interrupt, go for it. That being said, the first thing I want to talk about, the very first thing, let me move my tabs around a little bit because we're going to talk about a franchise I love. I don't think you can even call it a franchise, actually, now that I say it out loud. Okay. News segment. LA Noire. I love it. You probably love it. It's one of those games that was an artifact of its time in many ways. You know, like you go back and you try to replay it and it's not aged the best, mainly because of like the technology they used for facial capture. It was very, very interesting, very weird. But basically, if you never played this because you're young, because you know what, you want to know something really depressing for everybody? There's people watching this video, probably in this stream right now, who were born after LA Noire came out. Feel old? I do. Every day. So just sit on that for a minute. Came out in 2011, okay? So there's people that were born after this game came out who are approaching their mid-teens. Do we have anybody? Yeah, actually, I'm not going to ask that because I don't. Luke's asking if he has any children in his chat. No, I'm not. I don't care. But I'm just saying there's people out there that might be watching this that you know, were born after this, okay? So you might not be familiar with LA Noire, but basically what they did is they used a cool sort of like the surround camera thing where you sit in the enclosure and then they have a bajillion cameras all around and they film from a bunch of different angles the actor's face, and then they map that face onto a mesh within the game, almost like a projection. So it's not really an animated mesh moving lips and mouths and jaws and eyes and things. It's actually, basically think of it as like a video or a moving texture on top of a mesh. That's basically what's happening here. And what makes it interesting is because of how they captured that, the actors were sitting in their chairs like this, doing all of the voice acted delivery. So they would be like, yes, Mrs. Brown, I'm interested in what you think about this case. But that dialogue might have been happening while they're walking. So then they do the motion capture of the character walking, and they have to map the facial capture onto that moving body. So you have instances where somebody's walking down the street talking, but their head is like, yes, I'm wondering what you think of it. And it doesn't work at all. It doesn't blend because the person, when they were delivering the dialogue, wasn't walking like in modern mocap studios. They were sitting in a chair, and then later they did the motion capture. So the whole game was a fascinating use of technology for the time. But in the modern day, it certainly would be a very inefficient and impractical way of doing it. What's this moment?
She's okay.
I'm sorry to have to tell you this, Michelle, but your mother is dead.
Caleb donated $20 through Super Chat.
Doesn't work that
There's
great.
people in chat younger than Noire. Shut up, Luke. I didn't ask to be attacked like this. I know I'm old, I don't need to be reminded.
Every day, man, I'm going to remind you every day. Every day. Dude, I have a little sister who, like, every once in a while, she'll just, like, casually mention something where she's, like, going through her adult life. It's like, yeah, I had to go to the DMV and do this and that. I'm like, you're like 5 years old. What are you talking about? Because in my head, she's still like 5 years old. I remember when my parents brought her back home from the hospital. I'm like, what are you doing driving a car? Sit down. Like, what are you doing? It's a problem, dude. We're all getting old. Just buckle up. Death's a-coming. One day closer every day. With that said, yeah, your mother is dead. Caleb super chatted $20. See, that's a time to interrupt with a super chat. Well done, Caleb. Well done. Can I pin it? I can't pin your comment, otherwise I would pin it. But that's how you interrupt a stream segment. Jacob, you're keeping this in. If somebody throws $20 at me, they get to be in the stream clip. We're doing it. Okay, continuing on. Some funny clips just to wet your palate. Is that a term? I don't know.
Do you think you could answer a few questions for us?
This is the other thing, is the actors, because they were sitting in these cages, they weren't acting against actors. They were just talking and delivering lines to a camera. And so they have to like try and act off of each other, imagining what the actress or actor would be saying and reacting to. It was tough. The fact that LA Noire is even remotely digestible as a piece of media is remarkable, because they were fighting uphill when it came to like actually capturing and doing all of this. It's not easy. Like, actors all the time complaining about having to like do their scenes in front of a green screen or something. Imagine doing like a 50, 60, 70 hour video game with tons of dialogue, talking to a white box, you know, and a bunch of cameras, trying to act off of actors that aren't in the room. It's crazy.
Try.
When did you last see your mother?
Yesterday afternoon, I went to a dance at Belmont High. Mommy was supposed to pick me up, but
Dude, the
she
music.
didn't show.
So what did you do then?
Pure
I was
nostalgia.
upset. Daddy came instead.
You're feeling guilty about
That little thing, it happened quick. But this is the centerpiece, because again, there's some people out there in the community who have not ever seen or played this game. The whole idea of the game was they had to do this delicate facial capture because you were going to use it to determine whether they were telling the truth, whether they were maybe hiding something, or whether they were lying. And basically how the mechanic worked out was it was the truth if you believe them. You'd press lie if you have evidence to prove that they're not telling you the truth. And you use doubt if you don't have evidence pointing that they're lying, but you still think they are. Then they have other cool things like intuition to get an idea of like what other players did and all sorts of cool mechanics like that. But they kind of had to use this technology at the time to do it. And LA Noire, you know, it's a weird game because it was developed by Team Bondi. We have a bar in like Old Town Fort Collins, my hometown, called, I think it's just Bondi Bar. Bondi Beach Bar. That's what they call it. Yeah, this place. We call it Bondi, so maybe it is Bondi? I'm not sure. Anyway, this is the trashy place you go to if you're in Old Town Fort Collins as a college student and you want to potentially get like drugged. You go to Bondi Bar. Allegedly, in my humble opinion, that's just what I'm saying as a former student of CSU who lived there. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Don't sue me. Anyway, Bondi, who knows? Whatever. They were a secondary studio, but they were published by Rockstar Games. So this is something Rockstar used to do, is they used to publish a lot of games, and the games were like relatively similar to like the core games that they would make, but they would publish a bunch of stuff and put their logo on it and make sure it met their like quality standards. And Rockstar just hasn't done that, which is interesting because basically what happened is any games that Rockstar would have published, instead they started getting published by Take-Two. And then it freed up Rockstar to not have to worry about supervising that stuff. So they could just focus on GTA, just focus on Red Dead. But they used to publish stuff too, which is very interesting. But as a result, like they let them use their technology, they let them use their tools, and they had to meet certain qualitative standards to earn the Rockstar badge, you know, on top of it. And you can see even in how they presented the cover art, Rockstar Games presents LA Noire. So they're straight up putting their name on this thing. They are not pretending as though, you know, this is you know, some other team and yeah, we're technically publishing. No, they're very proudly presenting this basically as a Rockstar game, which is interesting. You can see the development of LA Noire began following Team Bondi's founding in 2004, was assisted by multiple Rockstar studios worldwide. It uses the proprietary motion capture technology Motion Scan, which nowadays is kind of obsolete, but at the time was very innovative and crazy. It was the first video game honored as an official selection at the Tribeca Film Festival. The game was released on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in May of 2011, in Windows and for Windows in November. An enhanced version was released for Nintendo Switch, PS4, and Xbox One in November of 2017. It received positive reviews from critics, with praise directed at facial animation, narrative, characters, performance, music, world design, interrogation, gameplay, though responses to the shooting and driving mechanics were mixed. It shipped 4 million units in its first month and 7.5 million by September, and won all sorts of rewards. They also had a VR game, The Case Files, release in December of 2017. And it was very interesting because it came out, and then shortly after as you can see, so they've got a description of this guy, Brendan McNamara, who directed the game and was head of the studio, creative director, all of that. Yeah, here you can get kind of an idea of how it worked. But what happened was kind of frustrating. So staff complained. Shortly after release, a group of former Team Bondi employees launched a website called LANoirCredits.com, containing over 100 names excluded or incorrectly listed in the final credits. An anonymous employee claimed he was asked to work 10 to 12 hours every day, including weekends. Following this, in a report by IGN, several anonymous members of the team publicly discussed the studio's managerial, staff turnover rates, and working hours and conditions associated with LA Noire. Some claimed that McNamara had been controlling and verbally abusive, and others spoke about their increased workload as a result of high turnover. Several referenced the ongoing crunch throughout development, one claimed to occasionally work between 80 and 110 hours per week to meet milestones. Some ex-employees claimed they were not paid overtime, which McNamara refuted. So there's a dispute over a lot of this. And I want to be clear, for legal reasons, of course, that a lot of this is allegations, alleged, and not necessarily proven. So there's people that are claiming that this is what they experienced, but then there's disputes from, of course, Rockstar, Take-Two, Team Bondi leadership, and all of that. Following the publication of the report, the International Game Developers Association launched an investigation against Team Bondi to verify the claims made. Lead gameplay programmer David Hieronymus, that's a cool name, and senior gameplay programmer Charles Lefebvre rebutted, I'm sorry for butchering that. I just don't know how to pronounce BVRE in... It's a lot of consonants. Anyway, rebutted the claims, acknowledging crunch was unfortunate but inevitable, stating that they were not aware of any unpaid overtime or abusive working conditions. McNamara felt he had been unfairly maligned by many ex-employees, noting that other artists and businessmen in other industries, such as Steve Jobs, Sam Peckinpah, and Werner Herzog, had performed worse actions than he had, with much less vilification. He claimed the studio had improved its working conditions in the months after release, including the introduction of flexitime. In July of 2011, a series of confidential emails leaked, along with further comments from staff members who claimed they highlight the contentious relationship between Team Bondi and Rockstar. McNamara questioned how the confidential emails were allowed to be shared, noting that it sets a, quote, pretty dangerous precedent. Speaking to GamesIndustry.biz, an anonymous source from the development team claimed that Rockstar, quote unquote, saved the project, but the relationship between Rockstar and Team Bondi was badly damaged, and it was quite clear further collaborations were unlikely. The source claimed that Rockstar was frustrated with the direction at Team Bondi, and as a result, management at Team Bondi, quote unquote, resented Rockstar for taking lots of creative control. They added Rockstar used to be very keen on making Team Bondi something like Rockstar Sydney, but the more they worked with Team Bondi management, the more they came to understand that this was a terrible idea. McNamara remained optimistic about his relationship with Rockstar and said, hopefully it doesn't have any hard feelings about us. This little thing about Team Bondi eventually becoming Rockstar Sydney, keep that in the back of your mind, okay? The idea that they're going to take the team run by McNamara and turn it into basically a mini Rockstar. Remember that. Remember that. After the game came out and, was released, some time went by, but in early August of 2011, it was reported that Team Bondi was seeking a buyer, with McNamara being seen around offices of Australian film studio Kennedy Miller Mitchell, believed to negotiate acquisition deals. But on August 9th of 2011, Kennedy Miller Mitchell announced that they had acquired all of Team Bondi's assets as well as the intellectual property to the game McNamara was presently writing the script for. All employees, 35 at the time, were given the opportunity to move to them. Team Bondi was placed into Team Bondi was placed into administration on 31st August 2011. At the request of Team Bondi's creditors, the company entered liquidation October 5th. The liquidation paid out. They owed 40 creditors as much as $1.4 million, unpaid wages and bonuses accounting for 75% of those debts. 33 staff credited their work on LA Noire were owed a combined $1 million in unpaid wages or bonuses. Among those, McNamara claimed to be owed $102,000. General manager Vicky Lord was owed just under $100,000, and lead programming and gameplay designer David Hieronymus was owed about $43,000. Depth analysis was also reported to be owed $145,000. Not great. Not great. Lots of mismanagement. Money didn't flow the way they needed it, and it makes me wonder if perhaps this was an instance of financial mismanagement paired with just general studio mismanagement. But either way, the whole thing kind of imploded. Despite LA Noire's success, the team that made it imploded. They worked on another game after this called Whore of the Orient. I would love to see the game released with that name nowadays. Can you imagine the freak out? IGN and Eurogamer just like they would lose their minds, but that's what it was called. Okay, that's what it was called. It was announced that this new game would contain one of the greatest untold stories of the 20th century. Developed at KMM Interactive Entertainment, McNamara was once again appointed as creative director of the game. They said they were passionate about the project. 4-dimensional storytelling, and a game can literally become the equivalent of a novel. It's a movie that's played interactively at home. The studio had planned to go ahead developing 2 new games with the support of government funding. It was set to be a spiritual successor of LA Noire. The game was targeted for release on Windows, PS4, and Xbox One, and they were guesstimating a release of 2015. However, didn't really work out too well. Warner Brothers was named to have signed a publishing deal for the game. Warner Brothers Interactive Entertainment, though, pulled out of the publishing deal in December of 2012. And as a result of this, and due to general investment issues, KMM Interactive was shut down in April of 2013, and all staff was released. Oof. Although not made official, it was widely believed that the Whore of the Orient was effectively canceled with the studio closure. Regardless, the game received a $200,000 investment from the Australian government agency Screen NSW in June of 2013. Some journalists noted that the move felt rather illogical as the development had previously been slow. Now that the game studio had closed, the investment would not be of use for the agency. And then you can see other things like this. In September of 2013, City of Monash, which is a local government in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, the councillor Jae Young Lo stated that he was offended by the game's title, with it being a, quote, disgrace to Chinese culture, daring to report the game to the Human Rights Commission. Lowe further underlined, quote, its use of the word Orient more even than the word whore. That is the issue. The O word is very similar to the N word for African American communities. Whore of the Orient is not heard from that point on. When asked about the game's status in June of 2014, podcast host on GameBugs, producer Derek Proud, stated, I don't think so, implying the game had been canceled. So there's even debate over whether or not the game existed. Like, they received money from the government and they were trying to figure out if the game was even being made still, and nobody really knew, which is weird. Like, it's a little crazy. So all of this just continued to flood out over the next handful of years. The game never really happened, of course. There were some leaks and like gameplay clips that leaked that basically it was like a guy running through a like meat market or something. Very simple gameplay, like pre alpha, like in the middle of nowhere. But as time went by, it received a little bit more money from various institutions and stuff, but it never really went anywhere. After that, McNamara founded Sydney-based studio Video Game Deluxe in 2013. Their first release was LA Noire: The VR Case Files in 2017. In 2020, the studio announced they were working on a AAA open world VR game for Rockstar. In October of 2021, it was revealed to be the VR version of GTA San Andreas. Following the release of MetaQuest 3 in October 2023, players questioned the status of the VR version, and some suspected it may have been quietly canceled. Meta said the port was on hold indefinitely in August of last year. And then Video Game Deluxe developed the mobile versions of GTA The Trilogy Definitive Edition in 2023 and took over post-release development of Grove Street Games in 2024. So they've maintained a relationship with Rockstar. And all of this builds to the fact that something has happened. GTA developer announces Rockstar Australia studio bringing LA Noire boss back into the fold. Brendan McNamara is back within GTA developer Rockstar officially now, not as the guy running a small studio working for them, but now officially as the head of the newly acquired and retitled studio Rockstar Australia. Remember when previously they were saying that they were hoping one day Team Bondi could become basically Rockstar Sydney? Well, now they announced that they bought McNamara's studio, the Sydney-based developer, and now they're being retitled as Rockstar Australia. Almost Rockstar Sydney. So the hope from a decade ago ended up basically being fulfilled. Up until this point, they've worked on a lot of like VR games, and now they're doing like support and updates and stuff on those GTA remaster re-releases. But there's an opportunity they do more than just support projects. Rockstar has previously expressed interest in revisiting franchises that have long sat dormant, such as LA Noire. And when they initially started dropping the VR case files and stuff, people got excited because they were like, oh, it's 2017. It's been 6 years. They might be bringing LA Noire back. They might be experimenting, seeing what the feedback's like, seeing if people are still interested in the franchise. And based on that success, they might choose to greenlight maybe a remake with modern tech, or maybe just a sequel fully, or a spiritual successor. It wasn't really clear. But here we are. As of today, they've bought out the studio. They are renaming it Rockstar Australia, and McNamara is back. Perhaps it's a lesson that you never burn a bridge if you can help it. You just don't burn a bridge. McNamara could have freaked out that like Rockstar wasn't saving his company that made a successful game and let the company kind of implode and go to another guy. He could have thrown a fit and like complained about Rockstar and burned those bridges, but he didn't. And now, a decade later, because of his relationship ongoing with Rockstar, he has a job again, and he's back in the fold, which is, an interesting development, to say the very, very least, because just a handful of years ago, the idea that he'd be back in the fold would be very surprising. So realistically, what are they working on? Probably just continued support for other games and projects. I think it's cheaper for Rockstar to just buy them out, have them keep working on these little remasters and stuff, and do it that way. They probably remember what it was like working with McNamara, and if it's true that they had to kind of micromanage the project, it would make sense if they were like, let's not give him a full like creative director role on a new project again. And also like the team primarily has experience with like VR and stuff, so they're probably not doing LA Noire 2. What do I hope they're doing? I mean, of course, I hope we get anything new for LA Noire as a franchise. I love the setting in LA Noire. I love the music, the art direction, the writing, just across the board. I love me some LA Noire, and I would love to revisit that franchise again, if you can even call it a franchise again. But we shall see. We shall see. But time will tell. But nonetheless, it's a very interesting development, specifically to bring these guys in, and this guy with his history to bring him in. Yeah, X to doubt. I think we should all X to doubt that this actually turns into LA Noire 2. But we can hope and cope, perhaps. But time will tell. Who knows? Maybe we'll see that other project he was working on renamed, and see it brought back into the fold. It seemed like an interesting idea at the time, but who knows like where it actually was going to end up. It's just really, really hard to tell, frankly, because the game just kind of fizzled out of existence, which is always kind of a weird way for something to end. You can see the only screenshot ever released for the game was this one. And so they had like some environments built, and, the game looked graphically pretty impressive. But my understanding is that it was basically, a canceled action adventure game. It was in development at KMM Interactive. It, let's see, in 2012, it was targeting 2013 or 2015 release. It was confirmed canceled in 2016, having not had a status update in 2013. Set in 1936, the game would have centered around the corrupt city of Shanghai in the hands of Western powers, filled with mob crime and political troubles. The Kuomintang ruthlessly puts down labor movements in an effort to suppress communism, while the international police force attempt to maintain peace. Definitely a game we've not seen before. Could have been interesting. Could have been cool. Maybe we see that as like, rebooted or something. Who knows? But only time will tell. I think it's probably likely that KMM owns the rights to whatever they worked on, even if they're never, ever going to touch it again. So they'd probably have to do something totally unique and totally new. But even if it is just a remake from the ground up of LA Noire, I would be there for it. The tough thing is, like, people have asked in the past, they've come into stream and they've been like, Luke, do you think they'll ever remaster LA Noire? They're remastering all the other stuff. I know, same questions will be asked if they'll remake it. The problem is that, like, when you do The Last of Us Part 1 remake, you can use all the same, like, motion capture. You can use all the same voice acting and voice capture. The problem with LA Noire is that because of how they built it, there is no easy way to do that. Like, they can't use the facial scans, so they'd have to re-motion capture everything. And if you're re-motion capturing everything, you have to re-record everything. Do you bring back the original actors? You could. I think that relatively easily. The ones that are willing to come back, the ones that are interested. And that aren't asking ridiculous sums of money, because that's happened before. It's like voice actors on previous games will ask ridiculous sums of money and then they don't get the job. And then they go on social media and complain about it. But with this, I mean, it's not as simple as like, oh, we remade the assets, we remade the character models and stuff, and now we just kind of put that in place of the old stuff and then let the machine kind of run with maybe some tweaks to it. No, like, you're rebuilding everything from scratch, which can be done. It can be done. Great example of when it's done well, Mafia Definitive Edition. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That game is a phenomenal example of rebuilding something old from the ground up in a way that totally reinvents the experience and modernizes it, makes it playable again. Brilliantly well done. So it's possible, but it's expensive and time consuming. But if you're willing to buy out an entire studio, maybe that's why you're doing it, because you plan on doing that. I'll tell you what, LA Noire sold $4.5 million or 4.5 million units in its first year, 7.5 by like 2016, 17. Or 7.5 by 2016, 17. I think they could easily get 5 to 10 million copies for a full high quality remake of LA Noire. Bunch of old people that remember the game's launch will buy it. A bunch of people like me who were younger when the game came out but still love it will buy it. And I think a whole new generation will buy it because the game is really good. I think it's a layup, fam. I think it's a layup. So Rockstar, call me. Please. I don't know why you would need to call me, but just call me. We can talk about stuff, please. Anyway, that's where we're at with it. So we'll keep an eye on what they're doing because it's very interesting. End of segment. Okay. Mr. Piffle, thank you for the 5. Assuming GTA 6 performs as expected, do you think that it's guaranteed to get GOTY? I only ask because there are a lot of heavy hitters this year. No, I don't think it's guaranteed, and I think the only evidence you need to point to is that Red Dead Redemption 2 launched in 2018 and lost Game of the Year. Does it have a total of more Game of the Year awards from like various outlets? Very likely. But you got to remember, God of War 2018 won and beat Red Dead 2. So it's not a given. Like, part of it is that because everybody like assumes that GTA 6 like and anything Rockstar does will get Game of the Year, people start to root for the underdog. So if there's another game that's really, really good that maybe people think is like more meaningful for the industry, then you probably do see something else take Game of the Year, but it's going to take something like that. I mean, kind of a surprise. But KCD2 could do that. Who knows? Maybe Ghost of Yotei ends up being really good. You know, we have time. We have time. Mafia, The Old Country. Yeah, meaningful. Jean-Claude, unfortunately, in the modern industry, a lot of the conversations with like game critics and journalists is not what game is the best. It's what game is important. And it's true in all media coverage for some stupid reason. I mean, where some games will win like Oscars or some movies will win Oscars and stuff. And you're like, what? It's like, it wasn't a really good movie. It was an important movie. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, okay, whatever. You do you, fam, I guess. Nobody's ever heard of that. Nobody's ever watched it. Like, whatever. No Monster Hunter. I think the problem for Monster Hunter is that the performance issues are really inescapable. Like, it's at this point so bad that for a lot of people, the game is approaching unplayable unless they're willing to put up with some like really, really ugly textures and stuff. And that for a lot of people has soured their entire experience, I think. So I think it might get a nomination, but I think amazingly enough, I think it's just unfortunate that they don't really have a choice at this point. I think it'll get nominated, but I don't think it'll win. I don't think it's like a big contender to actually win. And who knows? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they surprise me and take Game of the Year. But I think sentiment right now is really low because of it. You know, it's just. But they did it to themselves. I mean, they have no one else to blame but themselves. They released it unpolished, and that's just how it happens. Thank you. Okay, I was trying to find this one other thing. Okay. What about Doom? Doom, I think also could be a nominee as well. That one also, I think, could easily be up there. My guess is that we probably will end up at the Game Awards with like 4 or 5 really solid contenders. And any one of them could win, and I think it would be totally fair. You know? That's what I'm expecting. Because the other thing people are forgetting... There's another huge thing happening in the industry in like probably 2 months. The launch of the Switch 2. And Nintendo typically, when they launch something like a new console, they tend to have a Game of the Year contender set up for the launch. So whether that's, you know, a new 3D Mario, whether that's just Mario Kart 9 or whatever, they probably also have a nominee because Nintendo like always has a new nominee. So I think that that's another piece of this that people are just forgetting is that like Nintendo comes out swinging hard when they launch new consoles, usually with at least one massive game. You know, they might not have a ton of games at launch made just for it, but they typically have some first party stuff. And I think they have some heavy hitters. I mean, we could realistically in the next 12 months, maybe 14, 15 months, we could realistically see like the new Mario Kart, a new Mario 3D game, and even, guess what we're in time for? By probably first thing early next year, a new Animal Crossing. Last one was in the midst of lockdowns. it would time out pretty perfect. Plenty of time to work on it. So I think that there's a lot of big games that are kind of sitting on the sidelines right now because they want to have their time to shine. But I think Nintendo probably, when they do the full reveal in April for the Switch 2, they show off a lot of like probably trailers for the next generation of Mario Kart, next gen Smash. They show off whatever, Animal Crossing looks like. They're going to have a lot. So just buckle up. But are they important? Where's the social struggle in Animal Crossing? I guess actually in Animal Crossing there literally is, because you're constantly in debt. Maybe the next game will just have student loans. You show up to the island and Tom Nook has sold you your student loans, but your degree is useless for living on the island. Maybe that's what they do. Wins every Game of the Year award because it's like, it's so relatable. It's so relatable. My God. Yeah, then you pay taxes. But then you go to another island and you buy something and you bring it back, and then you have to pay like a use tax on it. That's how they get you. And then they lock you up for like in-game and real-world months. Yeah, that'd be good. Anyway, Alexander, thank you for the 5. You gonna check out Claire Obscure previews? Yes, I have them pulled up. We will be looking at that in just a little bit. Bender the Offender, 6 months. Ooh, baby. Thank you for that one. I've been gathering PC parts for the next few games coming out. Mainly for kids too, though. The only part I'm missing is the 5080. And good luck finding it, my friend, because they are damn near impossible to find. Unless you're willing to spend like $5,000 or something to a scalper. And even then, who knows if you'd actually get it. So yeah, good luck on the hunt. I think the way to do it, honestly, I think is to drive to like a Micro Center or like whatever tech computer store you have near you, or even far from you, but you drive there and straight up, dude, ask one of the employees, when do you get like your shipments in? Just like help a brother out. It's like Monday nights, Tuesday nights, something like that. When I did that, the guy at Micro Center was like, yeah, the truck comes in Monday night, and so Tuesday morning is when you want to actually come and look for stuff. It's like, okay. Gotcha. So now I know, like if I'm feeling like rolling the dice, be outside Micro Center on a Tuesday morning and see what they got on the shelf. Do it that way. Sometimes that's how you do it. That's how they do it. Let's see. I read that one. Mark, thank you for that 10. Very generous. Hey, Luke / chat. How do you feel about AMD 7900 XTX Black? I'm trying to decide between that and the 4090 when I can actually get my hands on one. My problem is that I rely not just on CUDA cores for like the transcoding and like the creative applications we use, but with so many games so poorly optimized nowadays, I feel like I have to have the ability to use quality upscalers, and the AMD upscalers are just not anywhere near as good as the new DLSS stuff. So for me, like the whole package of the 4090, I think is more appealing. It's my opinion, my humble opinion. But it also depends on the types of games you play. If you're not playing something that needs ray reconstruction and needs multi-frame, or not multi-frame, that's the 50 series, but needs, the really good frame generation and stuff, then you don't need the 4090. So it's a specific thing for each individual person for sure. Ugh. FSR kind of sucks compared. I mean, it's not there yet, and it's got a ways to go. DLSS is just way better, in my opinion, than FSR, to the point where every time I see FSR, I immediately recognize them like, ew. Indie games playing recently? Yeah, going back through Dave the Diver. It's fantastic. Yeah, it's great. Hey Luke, did you see Rockstar Games just acquired? Oh, you rewind the stream a little bit, my friend. We just talked about that for like 45 minutes. Yeah, we just went through all that. Let's see. Yeah, FSR 4 is likely to be exclusive to RDNA Plus. Looks on par with DLSS. Yeah, I'll believe it when I can test it, Adam, because I've thought some of the previews and demos and stuff they did for like FSR2 and FSR3 looked way better than the previous versions. And then you actually use them in games and it still looks like crap. So we'll see. We'll see. Because any marketing demos or like little sliver previews, it's like, it's promising. It's promising, but I got to see the final version, you know. Gots to see it. Gots to see it. Okay, let's talk about this one. Let's make Jorah uncomfortable. New segment. Okay. Okay. This topic may upset our friend Joe Raptor, but we have to talk about it, okay? We have to talk about it because there's a small development that I'm going to stretch into this whole video as we do a recap, okay? Full transparency. Not AC Shadows. No. Of course, Horizon. Horizon, as we all know, is Herman Hulst's baby. He loves it dearly. He's from Guerrilla originally, and then he got promoted up the chain at Sony, so he's got it near and dear to his heart. But what's interesting about Horizon is that they have tried desperately to turn it into a thing. They're trying to make fetch happen, and it's just not happening yet. Horizon sells very well, certainly when you put it on like the PlayStation Plus, you know, whatever free download or discounted download and purchase thing for PlayStation Plus subscribers. It does very well long term because it's a graphical powerhouse, you know, without a doubt. If you buy a PS5, for example, and you want to see what that console's capable of when you push it, this is the game. You know, it's a gorgeous series. The art direction's solid, the implementation, the technology, all of it is really, really well done. My perspective on Horizon, some people misunderstand and think that I hate it or think it's really bad, and we do ham it up and poke fun at it because it's funny watching like fanboys freak out. But I think Horizon is fine. Even at times, it's pretty good. I just don't think they're masterpieces, and I don't think they've earned the cred that PlayStation acts as though they've earned. Like, I think they are the quintessential, like, 7 to 8 out of 10 games. Like, they're pretty good, or even good. But they're not, like, these masterpieces where they're putting Aloy next to, like, Kratos in their lineup. I'm like, no. Baby dear. You're nowhere near Kratos, okay? You got to earn that spot. And Aloy has the personality of a wet paper bag, in my opinion. Even in the second game, spoiler warning, they're so worried about her appearing weak because they cannot justify Aloy having any weakness at all. She's like the ultimate Mary Sue in these games. That they literally create, like, again, spoilers, a clone of her, and that clone is insecure about stuff. And then Aloy comes in and is like, you need to get it together. We have to save the world. You can do this. Like, they literally, instead of just having Aloy be insecure about anything, they're like, no, we're going to create a clone and have the clone do it. And they literally call her Beta. Yeah, literally. Like, you can't even make up how stupid it is, okay? It's insane. I don't know how anybody's like, it's really well written. I honestly have no idea how you could think that, but more power to you. Anyway, I have many frustrations with the Horizon stuff. Primarily because of that. Like, they're so focused on trying to make Aloy a thing and Aloy this like hardcore mascot of PlayStation that it just feels like they're unwilling to actually write a compelling, interesting character from the ground up. And instead they're just trying to skip to the part where everybody cherishes everything that she does. Sorry, got lightheaded. So they've tried spin-off projects. They've tried the Call of the Mountain, I believe is what it was called. The VR game, and then they tried the Lego Adventures game, which was like 6.5, 7 hours long and was not reviewed very well because it was very just haphazardly thrown together, and it just, you know, even Horizon fans were like, this is pretty minimal, you know, pretty minimal. But they're doing other stuff. They were working on a big TV show and movie projects, and some of that fell through. Some of the writers bailed and directors bailed, and now they're rebooting some of that stuff and some of those talks, trying to get the Horizon movie moving. We'll see if that actually ends up happening. It obviously hasn't yet. Oh yeah, the other thing, I just have to mention this because it's like I saw somebody on X post a simple phrase about Horizon. I thought it was brilliant, and I'm sorry, it was like some person with like 15 numbers next to their name. So who knows if it was even a real person. But what they said was, Horizon is a game that pretends to be an RPG. And I thought that was brilliant. I was like, yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a game that like gives you these dialogue choices. Remember, like the fist, the heart, the brain, whatever logos. And you choose the different dialogue options, and it literally does nothing. Like, it has no effect on anything at all. And they're like pretending that it's really deep and meaningful, and you got to think about your and it doesn't matter. Like, none of it matters. It's just a game that's trying to appear like something it's not, and it's trying really hard to make fetch happen, and it's just not happening. So anyway, that's one thing I wanted to put out there. But in as part of these expansionary efforts, they're trying to turn it into this massive, big thing, this global franchise, multi-billion-dollar franchise. As they're doing that, they've greenlit these spin-off projects, but then they've also greenlit projects that are aimed to fall in line with the Jim Ryan direction for the PS5 era, which, you know, the whole thing has been live service. Because when you have a big IP, in theory, you should be able to make a big live service game that prints tons of money, right? That's what they're hoping for. So they've greenlit a couple of different things. They've greenlit like a big Horizon MMO that's being made at like, is it NC Soft or something? It's some partner company, and they're working on that. We thought it was canceled, but then they confirmed it wasn't canceled. A different game was canceled. So that's still out there somewhere. We've not really seen anything about that. But Guerrilla Games, the actual studio behind Horizon, is also working on a big online Horizon game. They're not working on Horizon 3, at least not yet, in anywhere close to full capacity. They're working on this online game. And they have some expectations for it. Okay, just to be clear, and put this succinctly. Where's the tab? Okay. So Horizon Zero Dawn's multiplayer spinoff has big dreams, as Guerrilla confirms it's hoping to attract more than 1 million users. As whispers about the multiplayer Horizon game continue, it appears that developer Guerrilla Games could be expecting to deal with a lot of concurrent players. As a new job listing suggests, it's looking to hire somebody with experience handling at least 1 million global users. Now there's no job posting. It's since been taken down, but taken from that job posting, the page specifically mentions, quote, the online infrastructure team, which owns our online multiplayer game infrastructure. Its goal is to develop systems that enable game developers to reliably build and operate games on a global scale. And it adds, we are deeply invested in the implementation of industry best practices in the areas of platform engineering and infrastructure management. So they're looking to hire somebody that's willing to juggle or able to build a system that can juggle over 1 million players. I love the ambition. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's giving confidence. It's giving passion. It's giving what's the term? Pipe dreams, when previous projects have not amounted to much. So we'll see. Hubris. Yeah, Ali, I think you're right. Hubris. Listen, Concord collapsed in many ways. It's delusion. Concord collapsed for a lot of reasons. Okay. Chief among them, in my opinion, because it wasn't a game anybody wanted. Okay. Nobody was asking for a kind of crappier version of Overwatch. Nobody wanted it. And as a result, they peaked on Steam, at least, with a all-time high of 697 players. And what makes this even funnier, and I've showed this before, is I'll see if I can find it real quick. I think it was it Insomniac? I think it was. Yeah. So some people, this guy, Kevin actually runs like the community management stuff at Sony Bend Studio. The guys that did Days Gone and all of that. They reportedly were like, the whole team was playing Concord on its day of launch. So everybody at like Insomniac and then the team at Sony Bend were like trying to support them by playing the game. They might not have been playing on PC, but it's really funny to think that this number is potentially inflated with members of Sony's own employees because it's not impossible, which is just funny. That their peak player number is probably actually even lower than that because some of these people are actually like employees that were being paid to play it, which is funny. Anyway, it died for many, many reasons, but chief among them, it was a game nobody wanted. Horizon Online, I think, is a game that potentially falls into a similar category. Now, the fact that Monster Hunter Wilds is having so many technical issues actually presents a good opportunity for Horizon if it's ready anytime soon. Because allegedly this game is expected to be basically Monster Hunter, but with parties of like 4, 5, 6 in a Horizon environment with Horizon robot monsters and stuff, which is not, the worst idea. What is, I think, the worst idea is that there's been leaks of the art and leaks of the character designs and things like that, which, I mean, these are very old, so it could totally flop. But I think nobody's asking for a Fortnite skinned Horizon Monster Hunter spinoff. I don't think anybody, but is it important? I don't think anybody's asking for that. Okay. And that leads us to a situation where they're launching this game. This game is extremely expensive. It's been years and years. I mean, this is approaching the point of like hundreds of millions of dollars. And then they have some actual clips. They have some actual like screen caps and screen grabs from a leak in 2020. And I'ma just be real. If any of these, I mean, it's very old, but I mean, after people threw fits over the problems of Concord's designs, we'll see. Again, this could totally change. These are 5-year-old leaks at this point. But if this is where they were starting, yeah, it's a bold strategy. We'll see if this works out for them, Con. Yeah. We'll see. I'm anxious about it for them on their behalf. And I'm saying this as somebody that like will get a lot of enjoyment out of talking about this game if it looks the way that I'm starting to think it might be. But they cannot afford for this game to be a disaster. This game is one of their biggest, most ambitious and expensive projects that they've got on the books. And they've just made an interesting hire. So as you can see, Arctix posted this on X. The Horizon Online project just gained another game design legend. Chris Proctor, beloved by the Destiny 2 community for unique weapon designs and mechanics, has joined Guerrilla as a design director. Welcome, Chris. The Horizon community is happy to have you. So he previously worked at Bungie. You can see listed for 5 years and 3 months. Senior design lead on Destiny 2 Sandbox Craft lead. Prior to that, senior design lead, Destiny 2 weapons feature lead. And then was hired and moved to the Netherlands to work on this. Just hired, like today. Let's see. So this guy says, yeah, I bet he's taking on a lot of what Dennis Zopfi did, who previously was like a gameplay director, previously worked there, now is working over at CDPR in The Witcher 4. Dennis was lead combat designer for Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West. He was probably working on the online project until December when he went to CDPR to work on The Witcher 4. Lost one legend, gained another. So, and then Dialga, this game is getting canceled soon. Highly unlikely. They clearly stated in November post for an intern that the game would be preparing to launch in 2025, and it's been progressing for 7+ years. Plus, as stated in my original post, they just hired a high-profile design director, very unlikely to be canceled. I do agree it's very unlikely it's going to be canceled. I think it almost certainly launches. But I think this is a game, like, maybe I say it this way. The games industry is somewhat unfair, okay? It's a little unfair. And it's unfair in the sense that some studios can get away with some stuff and others can't. Some studios can present X, and then if this other studio presents X, it could be the identical thing. They get demolished for it. But it's not always just studios. It's also publishers. It's also all of that. And the problem is, I think a lot of these companies look to like Epic and they say, well, Fortnite can do this. Ubisoft can do this. Like, why is it that this studio can do this, but we can't? Like, how does that make sense? I don't know. But they think they should be allowed to get away with it because their game looks identical, right? I don't read, I'm sorry, Janesto, I don't read that language, so I can't read it. We can't have the chat flooded with messages we can't read because then we don't know whether what's being said is good or bannable or what. So we English only in the chat, unfortunately, is the rule we have to put forward. But with that said, I think it's interesting to see how these studios try to trend chase in certain ways where they will look at Fortnite and be like, oh, well, Fortnite has this art style and people love Fortnite. Look how many players they have, how many billions they make, right? And so they go and they throw money at it and try to do that themselves. But then their fan base comes at it and it's like, what is this? Like, I didn't want the Fortnite style. I didn't want characters that look like they were made out of cardboard boxes. I don't want this. I like Horizon for being beautiful and high fidelity. And now you had to lower it, no doubt, because it's a multiplayer game, because you can't have the same level of fidelity while having 5 players, 6 players at a time. It's like, I get why. But also, like, I didn't ask for this. And that's the bigger problem, I think, for the Horizon multiplayer game, is no doubt when the game comes out, it will have probably a ton of content. It will have a bunch of weapons. It'll have a bunch of skins, no doubt some to buy with real money. And it better be free to play. If they're charging $70 for it, I think they're going to be pleasantly surprised. But ultimately, like, the problem they're going to run into is that Monster Hunter fans just got Monster Hunter. And depending on when this launches, they could also be getting an expansion because there's some speculation that this might get pushed to next year. And if that happens, they're probably launching next to a big expansion for Monster Hunter. So Monster Hunter fans will probably, some of them might try it, but they'll probably play Monster Hunter. So then you're relying on like Horizon fans to play this. But if Horizon fans love Aloy, if they love the narrative stuff, if they love the beautiful, stunning graphics, like, are they really going to jump into an online, like, multiplayer game that doesn't have any of that? Might be graphically impressive in its own way with this different art style, but, like, are they going to jump into it? I don't know. And I think this is the problem for a lot of these companies, is that they think that there's just like an endless number of players out there, or they think players are really unidimensional. So they're like, oh, well, Fortnite players like Fortnite art styles. So we make a Horizon game with a Fortnite coat of paint. We'll get Fortnite players. And it's like, no, that's That's not how that works, okay? Players are much more nuanced than that. There's a lot more that goes into it. There's Horizon players that may not want to play this because of the art style, or because it's multiplayer, or because it's this or that. It's not as simple as just, well, we'll get all the Horizon players to play this because they like Horizon, and then this is Horizon. So we'll get all of those. So that's like 500,000 players concurrent right there. And then we also will get a bunch of Fortnite players. So that's another 200,000 maybe on top of that. And you can start to see how these like executives think that they can just hodgepodge this Frankenstein's monster player base together, when the other like elephant in the room with all this is that the most potent and powerful force in the games industry that can be used for good and for evil is peer pressure. If peer pressure is encouraging players to jump into something because it's so good, awesome. Games have been sold based on that. Entire, huge releases, whether it's Pal World or even another Sony live service game like from Arrowhead, Helldivers 2. Those games primarily blew up because of word of mouth. The peer pressure from all your friends to, you got to buy it, you got to try it. It's so good. You got to jump in with me. That peer pressure helped those games and helped them find amazing success. But it goes the other way too. And if a game is deemed uncool, if a game is deemed cringe or out of touch, it's real hard to overcome that. Concord being the primary example. Like, mechanically, Concord was decent. Like, yeah, you played it, movement was fairly tight, and the characters did have all their own unique abilities and stuff. Yeah, there were some synergies you could do together. When you found a match, it was pretty solid. It was missing a lot of stuff, but like it was put together like decently well, It wasn't the worst thing I've ever played. And there's been live service games that are not amazing that kind of end up eventually building up to something great. But with Concord, it was deemed cringe and uncool, and then it tanked. Same with Forspoken, cringe and uncool. Before it even launched, there were clips going viral of just the player character, whatever her name was, Faye, I think, talking. She was just doing a scene of dialogue, uncut, unedited. It went viral for how cringy it was, and that immediately tanked it. Saints Row reboot. You just send out a clip, a minute-long clip of that cast talking about eating the rich and down with capitalism and the patriarchy and, oh, my student loans are coming due. And immediately, people check out and are good. Don't buy it. And that's like seeing some of these leaks from 5 years ago. Again, to be fair, it's really hard to get that out of your head when you see that that's where they were starting, when that's the vibe that they were beginning with. Because nobody wants that. Definitely not Horizon fans, and definitely not like the Monster Hunter crew. So I don't. And then there's other things that we're hearing, like, for example, Sony saying that they still believe in premium live service games, which translation to normal person language, premium live service means at least $40 to then play the game that also has microtransactions and stuff in it. That's what Sony means by that. And they say even after Concord, they still, what they said in their like investor call was, quote, they still believe in premium live service, which to me signals like fair game dollar sign probably comes with a $40 dollar sign next to it. This probably more like a $70 price tag next to it, because they believe that it's a premium game. And I'm sure it will be beautiful. I'm sure it'll be polished. I'm sure it'll run great. I'm like, Guerrilla doesn't tend to screw up when it comes to that stuff. But when it comes to live service, it's not as simple as just, is the game solid and like pretty well put together? It's not as simple as that, because they can't make this profitable off of a launch that does pretty good. They have to have players play it and keep playing it and keep playing it and keep spending money in it and continue to do that for months and then years. And that is a way, way bigger ask. And they could find success. I mean, eventually, you know, if they stick with it for a long time, they could find success, and I think it's not impossible. We've even seen other instances with like Fallout 76, you know?
I watch your content on YouTube. Finally able to watch a live stream.
Booyah.
Here's a little something for the interesting talks, videos.
Thank you.
ML7 Olaf Wave.
Thank you, Revens GC. Thank you for that sub over on Twitch. Yeah, I think that like Fallout 76 is a great example of a game that starts, of course, horribly. Like probably one of the worst launches of any live service thing ever. Way worse. I don't know what the peak player counts were like, but Fallout 76 was a total unmitigated disaster. And that game is still rocking. Like there are still people that pour hundreds of hours into that game that are paying $100 a year memberships. No Man's Sky, exactly, Folly. That's another great example. Started horribly rough and now has ballooned into this amazing package that's overwhelmingly massive. It sounded sexual. I didn't mean it to, but I also probably did. So I think with a lot of these games, even if they start rough, you can eventually get to the point where they have amazing communities and are really solid, but you have to stick with them for a long time. And that takes a lot of time. That takes a lot of resources, a lot of money. And here's the other like thing that I think could be the nail in the coffin for the Horizon project, depending on how they run it. Guerrilla is not a team of like 3,000 people. Okay. It's not Activision. They're not that big. And Horizon has a dedicated fan base, no doubt, of people that want the single player games. And if they're in this weird spot where if this online project is successful, Guerrilla basically becomes the live service team that is needed to run this. And that means Horizon 3 is on ice for a good long while at least. So you probably will even get to a point where you see like pretty diehard Horizon fans that are wishing that this game doesn't do too well so they can get back to Horizon 3, which wouldn't necessarily blame them. I mean, could you blame them in that case? Like, it makes sense. They want X, they're being given Y, and they're like, if Y is successful, we don't get X. I don't like that. You know? So thank you, Kenesu1 for the sub over on Twitch. Thank you for that one. So all of this to say, we should be seeing in the next handful of months, probably, something about the Horizon game. I would guess at the summer, maybe in like June, we see the PlayStation showcase that reveals the game. And maybe they're shooting for a release this fall. What would be really, really freaking funny is if, you know, the meme is that Horizon always launches next to a bigger game because they think that it's bigger than it is, and it always harms Horizon's like final player counts and stuff. With the first game, they launched like right next to Breath of the Wild. The second game, they launched right next to Elden Ring. It would be so freaking funny if they ended up releasing accidentally right next to GTA 6. It would be so funny, dude. But it's not outside the realm of possibility because they constantly do this. Like they think that they can hit way above their weight class, and it's not impossible that they end up going right there. They're like, Herman, what the hell are you doing? Why are we launching next to GTA 6? Why are you doing this to us? He's like, no, Horizon's massive. It's bigger than Star Wars. And they're like, it's not though. Like, it's really not. It's going to be great. It's going to work out. Don't worry about it. It would be really funny. It would be really funny, but we will see. We will see. Because again, they're expected to probably launch this at some point this year, which means they got to show it relatively soon. They also have Marathon in the mix with all of this. There's rumors and leaks and speculation that they're going to start showing Marathon in the next like handful of months, which would clear the runway to probably start showing off Horizon around the summer. and maybe release in the fall next to a GTA 6. So time will tell. Time will tell. But they got to get it out at some point and figure out what they're doing. And I just can't wait. Because I think the Horizon game, honestly, this is probably one of those instances where the Horizon game is going to hinge on that first trailer more than probably any other game this year. Because if that first trailer is anything like the leaks, and that stuff has remained, I think there's a strong chance that this game gets memed into oblivion. But if they've like looked at the feedback to the leaks, and there was some speculation the leaks might have even been controlled, where they dropped that stuff to see if players would react positively to the art style direction and all of that. And then when the reaction was really negative, maybe they pivoted away from it. That's possible. It's possible what we end up seeing is nothing like those leaks. There's been stories even in Hollywood, you know, where they will leak who they're considering casting for a role. And it's not a leak. Like, they put it out there themselves because they wanted to see what like social media would say about, oh, X actor being cast as this. So this type of thing happens. It's not impossible that the leaks were controlled dissemination of information and they wanted to see what the public would think of it. But who knows? Who knows? I think that first trailer is going to be crucial. And if they don't nail it, and if it's cringe as hell, it's going to be a long year on the Free Roam podcast for Jor. I mean, because I'll be joking about it all the time. And it will be funny. We will have so much fun. But I hope it looks great. I hope that they nail it. I hope that they introduce some clever new ideas that we haven't seen before. I hope it's awesome. If I were a betting man, I would guess, just based on the quality of decisions we've seen from PlayStation in the last few years, if I were a betting man, I would guess that it probably is filled with some decisions I will find surprising, but we'll see. We'll see. Honestly, if Horizon I can't read. Honestly, if Horizon Monster Hunter doesn't do well along with Horizon MMO, we could see the series shelved for a bit. I mean, the thing is, like, if this launches this year, let's say this launches in like September or November or something, and it's just not doing great, it's not making much money, and then they try to launch the MMO, I think the MMO honestly stands a better chance of success because it's not coming from Guerrilla. I think Guerrilla has outsized pressures on them because there is an understanding where people know that if it doesn't do well, they are in serious trouble of getting, like, you know, the next game. But it's just going to be very interesting to see how it plays out. If the game comes out on Steam still requiring a PSN like Helldivers 2, I'm out. I mean, it literally will. They said that for the single player stuff, they're walking that back. But for the online stuff, their goal is to have crossplay and stuff at least available. And so they're going to need the PlayStation Network stuff because they also want to make it so when they ban you, if you're banned for like cheating or something, they can keep you banned. Okay. Why is somebody tagging me in a post on X that Hassan's banned? Like, why? Ooh, my coffee just exploded a little bit. Okay. What is Ubisoft's next play if AC Mirage is a huge do you mean Shadows? No, I mean, if if Shadows doesn't make a lot of money, because here's the thing, like Shadows can't just be kind of successful. Shadows, I think, needs to hold off Tencent. They need it to be a smash hit, which is going to be tough. So even if it performs, I think if it performs okay or even pretty good, all the way down to performs very badly, I think the outcome's the same, which is that they have to restructure with Tencent and either take the company private, or Tencent will take a bigger stake and they'll clean house of the leadership. So I think Shadows, like, I think the outcome of Shadows from a business perspective is pretty well set in stone. Like, I think it would need to be $1 billion game to prevent what's happening, because I think what's happening with Tencent is at this point inevitable. It's not just me that thinks that. It's also, like, you know, investors and investment analysts and stuff that are way smarter than me. Let's see. Peak and Valley, thank you for that super chat. Why not use Killzone for a live service game? I think at this point they've just accepted that Herman will only greenlight, and you know, the executive leadership at PlayStation really wants Horizon to be the focus, and Killzone, they're like, that's old. People don't like old stuff. And so they're just putting it on ice. Reven, thank you for that super chat. Hello, I saw your video of Monster Hunter Wilds and I agree with both. I told my brother to get an RX 7600, but now I'll tell him to get an RX 7700 XT. Yeah, you need something heavy to do the Monster Hunter thing, because Monster Hunter don't run great. It sure don't. It sure don't run good. It don't do run good, I think is the official term. Let's see, Keymaker. So how about that Light of Motira, huh? Yeah, or more Motoria or something like that. That, like, copy, clone, whatever of Horizon. Did that ever, like, come out? Was that ever a thing? No, still TBA. Still no firm release date. Yeah, that whole thing was hilarious, because it's so clearly Horizon. Yeah, maybe that game ends up popping off. Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be funny? Limit Break, saying for the 5. Are you going to finish your playthrough of Champions Tactics Grimoria Chronicles? I'm interested to see where the story goes. Well, I've been waiting for a $5 super chat so that I can afford another NFT. I've been waiting. And now we have it. Yay. What a disaster, man. That whole thing. It's like, yeah, we're focused on quality. And then they drop another NFT game. And it's like, what? What are we doing? Let's see. Did I read... Okay, I read that one. Okay, are you going to check out Claire Obscure previews? Yes. I have that here. Let's do it before I forget, okay? News, here we go. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 final preview from IGN. Here it goes. A lot of people have apparently gotten access to the preview. I did not do the preview or anything. I'm going to take this game in. Okay, I was going to say raw, but that there was no way I could just, like, save that, because I started saying I'm going to take this game in, and I meant, like, consume the game and play the game, but then I was like, clean, raw. It's going to sound bad no matter what. Anyway, moving forward positively, I think this game looks great. It seems really, really beautiful and well put together. It's from a very small team, which is also interesting. I'm bracing myself for the game to be way shorter than I was, you know, than I typically like, because this game looks so awesome. I'm like, oh yeah, I want like 80 hours. I know the developers have said like 30 hours in some contexts, but I don't know. I don't know if that means 30 hours total or if that means the main campaign is 30 hours. I don't know. Either way, I'm keeping my expectations in check because I don't want to be disappointed by a game that otherwise looks really, really awesome. But let's see what they say in the final preview. Buckle up. Let's go.
So a mentor told me that the most important part of any story is surprise. A few years later, a writer I deeply respect wrote that perhaps the difference between good and great writing is technique, though even that was probably not as important as conviction. But what keeps us invested in a story is curiosity, the gap between what we know and what we need to know, the questions that drive us. Combine all three and you tend to create something special. Each and every one of us has played a game that grabbed us from the jump, that connected with us in some unexpected way, a game that surprised us, whose belief in itself was obvious from the first frame, that made us want to explore. I have played a lot of video games, friends, and that feeling is increasingly rare for me, especially in the AAA space. So when I tell you that Clair Obscur, Expedition 33, grabbed me by the throat from the jump and didn't let go for a single second of the 3.5-hour demo I played twice, believe me when I tell you, that's some powerful magic.
And this, I actually agree with this sentiment. One of the most remarkable things about Clair Obscur 33 is that it's from a new studio. It's a new IP. It's brand new. Nobody's seen it before. And yet, when you see it, you remember it. For a lot of us, we saw it and immediately were like, I gotta see. I gotta see more. It captivated us. And even though it doesn't really make sense, we've seen other beautiful trailers. There's been other trailers with amazing production quality. There's other stuff out there that's also stunning and incredible in many, many ways. But this is a game that just somehow is able to capture people. And I think that's really impressive. It's something that's beyond maybe even a quantifiable or qualitative measure. Like, you can't really figure out exactly why this trailer is capturing people the way that it is and why the game is so appealing and intriguing, but it just is. It's a little bit of magic almost.
Expeditioners, we do not take for granted that you dedicate your final year of life to keeping hope alive for all of Lumiere.
If you're unfamiliar, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has a pretty fascinating setup. See, there's this being called the Paintress, and every year she paints a new number. When she does, every person of that age dies. Poof, vanishes, turns to dust. Do not pass go, do not collect $200. And the thing is, she's counting down. Every year, the people dying get younger, so every year the people of Lumiere send a volunteer expedition of people with 1 year left to live on a desperate, impossible, doomed mission to go to the continent across the sea and kill the Paintress, so she can never paint death again.
You battle the Paintress. Know that Lumiere fights with you.
You'll find journals from...
Also, really clever, weird idea. It's wacky, it's clever, it's different, but it's a simple concept. Simple concept. I think a lot of these devs are also they're from France. And so a lot of them have backgrounds within other big studios from France, Ubisoft being a big one. And it's why I always tell people, I'm like, the devs at a lot of these studios, even if you hate the publisher or hate the company or the name on the door, a lot of these people are freakishly talented. They're just being forced to make games you don't like because they have to pay the bills somehow, right? But they are freakishly talented. And when they go off and make their own studio, you see something like this, you're like, oh, this is what you were capable of. It makes you realize how oppressive some managers can be if they force you to just, no, we're gonna do Roller Champions instead. They're like, but I have this idea for a really cool game. We're going to call it Expedition 33 and it's going to be really whack. No, Roller Champions. It's why I think it's so crucial in this industry to embrace new ideas and fresh ideas, because you'll end up stumbling into some amazing stuff.
From Expedition 84, so if you can do the math in your head, you'll get how desperate this whole thing is and how young, but still older than the average RPG protagonist, your characters are.
Learn from the ones who came before.
And lay the trail for the ones who come after.
Things get weirder once your crew lands on the continent. They almost immediately run into an old man who nearly dispatches the whole expedition single-handedly. You play as Gustav, one of the survivors, traumatized and alone, walking through countless corpses from other expeditions and his own. He's about to shoot himself when he's found by Lune, another member of the expedition.
You do that We both die.
She's not blind to reality. They're probably both going to die, but expedition members swear an oath.
When one falls, we continue.
As long as one of them stands, their fight isn't over. Lune and Gustav clearly care about one another, but they don't always get along. When they find an unsigned message indicating another member of Expedition 33, Mael, might still be alive, Gustav wants to drop everything and try to save her, and then get out of Dodge. Lune is worried that the whole thing is a trap. Expedition members are always supposed to sign their messages.
We have to go.
No. Not yet.
At one point later on, Lune asks Gustav if he's a coward because he just wants to get Mael and get out. He's not. He's just dealing with watching almost everyone he knows die. And Lune, she's the one that said they should land on that beach in the first place. Neither one of them has it easy. These characters are adults, and they're written like it.
Come on, we always said the future of Lumiere is more important than any
individual life, yes.
Do you still believe that?
They don't always agree. They're dealing...
I mean, the game's writing sounds good. I just want to know, like, where's the discussion of student loans? You know? Like, when are they going to start talking about, like, class dysfunction and, like, you know, the patriarchy? Like, how am I supposed to relate to this? See, I have to laugh instead of just like pressing play again. Otherwise, people are going to be like, wow, Luke's gone woke. Because inevitably somebody will watch this clip and be like, wow, yeah, Luke said he wants student loan discussions in these. Man, the whole industry's falling apart.
With guilt and loss and trauma.
Yeah, where are the purple
They're
zits?
not always kind to one another in the heat of the moment, but they care about each other. And at the end of that exchange, once they've calmed down, they share a laugh.
The mission. Really?
Compelling characters are complex and flawed, and Expedition 33 seems to understand that.
Sorry.
How refreshing is that? We just talked about Horizon for like 45 minutes, and then we talk about this where it's like, yeah, compelling characters are flawed. Thank you. Thank you. You're telling me that like these characters are not just, you're not going to make a clone of one of the characters to have the insecurities and the flaws, while the main character from which the clone was made is perfect in pretty much every perceivable way. Wow. Novel. Interesting.
Even if they weren't, Expedition 33 could probably skate by on the world. My demo was fairly linear. There were branching paths with hidden grapple points, platforming, goodies, and secrets to find, and tough optional bosses to take on, but this isn't an open world game, and it's better for it. Expedition 33 reminds me of Final Fantasy X. These environments may be linear, but they're gorgeous, whether you're standing atop a hill looking at the indigo tree, or both underwater and somehow not. Expedition 33 is a visual feast, and I stopped in every environment I entered to marvel at the beauty and composition on display. There's even a world map you traverse to get from place to place, like the RPGs of old.
This will be useful.
What really hooked me, however, was the combat. Clair Obscur may be turn-based, but it's not a DVD menu. There's a lot of depth here. Every character has a melee and ranged attack, the latter of which must be aimed manually. Melee attacks build AP, and ranged attacks spend it. You'll also need AP for skills, unique attacks that each character has in their arsenal. And on top of that, each character has a particular attribute. Gustav can use certain skills to build up stacks of overcharge, which he can spend to cash out for a devastating attack. Lune's spells grant elemental stains that can supercharge her other spells for additional effects and damage. And my favorite, Mael, you do rescue her. This isn't a spoiler, she's in Clair Obscur's trailers. Can switch between 3 different stances, offering buffs to attack, AP generation, and defense. Managing your AP, setting up a big combo, and planning ahead matters. Like FF10, the turn order is displayed on the left side of the screen, so you can plan every turn in advance, but strategy is only half the battle.
Why does it feel like in the industry, there's some things like, why does it feel like in this industry there's a handful of things that have been forgotten? You know, like an ancient technology recently rediscovered. It feels like there's some things that used to be done in some of these older RPGs, JRPGs, adventure games that have just been kind of left behind and lost. Not because like they're truly lost, but because priorities have shifted, and it's like, oh, instead of these carefully designed environments, we just go for scale, and we just go for, raw scale, or like the world maps being largely abandoned in these types of games. It's like, why did we do that? And I think to a certain extent within these bigger companies, it's just, well, because that's just what we do. We have to follow the trend, and the trend is moving away from that, so that's what we do. Whereas for this, like, you have a team of young and energetic devs that are not beholden to any big, executive bigwig who's telling them to trend chase. And they're just like, no, we really liked what they did 20 years ago. Let's try something like that. Let's do that. And it ends up working quite well, Fidelity is valued higher than art direction nowadays. Yeah. I think to a certain extent, they want the big numbers. They want the ability to say we're using AI upscalers because they think investors will get all giddy if they hear the term AI. So I think to a certain extent, that's definitely true. And you see in these environments, like, how important art direction is.
The other half is moment-to-moment execution. You don't just choose an option and wait for a canned animation to play out. When an enemy attacks you, you can dodge, parry, or jump to avoid it. Dodging avoids attacks, while parrying nets you a potentially huge counterattack and awards AP, but has a tighter window. Sometimes the only way out is to jump over something. Sure, you can engage in the time-honored tradition of blocking with your face, but the harder fights are going to force you to engage with these defensive mechanics. And if you parry an attack that hits your whole squad, all of them strike back in a beautifully choreographed counterattack that never gets old.
That's cool.
Early on, I ran into a very powerful enemy who could kill my characters in a single hit. But the thing was, he had to hit me. If I could parry him, I could win. It took me a couple tries on my first run. He had a tricky attack that forced me to parry or dodge twice in a row, but once I figured out I could parry the first hit and dodge the second, I managed to take him down. Then there's the back-end stuff called Pictos and Luminas. You can equip up to 3 Pictos to any character, which provides buffs, like shooting this enemy might light them on fire, or attacks do more damage, or killing an enemy grants more AP, as well as stat upgrades. Win enough battles with a Picto equipped, and you can have everyone else equip its effects, minus the stat bonuses. And this is where you can do some really degenerate stuff. Sure, Mael has a skill that puts her in Virtuo's stance, where she does 200% damage if she uses it while an enemy is burning. Normally, you'd have to have somebody use another skill to set this up, but what if you gave Gustav and Lune a Lumina that means their ranged attacks are likely to set enemies on fire? Or maybe you equip a Picto that cranks up your base attack damage, or that awards more AP for nailing a parry, allowing you to stay on the offensive longer than you'd normally be able to. Then you're cooking with gas. Combine all of that, and battles offer a lot of interesting choices. If someone's low on health, do you spend an item or AP to bring them back up, or do you bet it all on dodging or parrying the next attack? How do you level up your characters? Who gets what skill as a Picto so they can stack the right stats and they don't have to spend Lumina points to get that effect? And on it goes. And through it all, Expedition 33 is constantly finding new ways to make itself interesting. What's a Gestural, and why is Lune obsessed with them? Who is the Paintress, and what does she want? Why is the world the way that it is? Are all these beings actually hostile? Some of them seem pretty friendly, and you have the option to fight them or leave them alone. What's the deal with that old man? How does any of this stuff work? In my demo, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 didn't stop to explain itself, and I appreciated that. It trusted me to figure things out, and I was more invested in what was going on as a result. Most importantly, I could never predict what would happen next. By the time "Thank you for playing" came up on my screen at the end of my demo, I was thoroughly hooked. On my second run-through, I found even more hidden areas, and laid the smackdown on one of the optional fights that had flummoxed me the first time around. When my time with Clair Obscur Expedition 33 was up, I wasn't ready to stop. I wanted to fight more battles, learn more about the world, and spend more time with these characters. Sandfall Interactive is a new studio, but you'd never know this was their first game from playing it. Surprise, conviction, curiosity. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 nails all three. It had my interest before I played it. Now it has my undivided attention. If Sandfall can stick the landing, they'll have put together something remarkable.
And I hope they do. I hope they do. But this is why whenever I'm like, this sounds too good to be true, often it is. And there's like one little holdover. And typically with games that are from new studios, that are smaller studios, that graphically are really impressive, typically the weak point is like length and volume of content. The fact they're willing to do a 3.5 hour demo that he played twice is encouraging for sure. But mentally, I'm just going to tell myself the game is like 10 hours long. And if it's any longer than that, I will be pleasantly surprised. That's kind of what I'm going with. I will mentally think of it as that. And then if they blow me away and it's bigger, I will just be giddy. But that's what I'm going to do. Because otherwise, I'm worried my expectations and excitement will get out of control. And as you guys know, hype can make us stupid. Hellblade. Yeah, Hellblade's a good example of a game that graphically was stunning in many, many ways. And it was just like, I think it honestly surprised so many of us because it was so short. And it literally, like, people don't believe me until you play Hellblade 2. But you play Hellblade 2 and the ending hits and you're like, what? I seriously thought I discovered like a false secret ending because I got to the end, the credits started playing, and I remember setting the controller down and just being like, what? And I went back and I checked my footage. I loaded back, redid the chapter, and sure enough, like, that is the ending. But I thought it was one of those things, like, you know, in Far Cry 4, secret ending. Yeah, Far Cry 4. In Far Cry 4, there's a moment where he like tells you to just sit there and wait for him. It's like, I'll be back in a minute. And he leaves. And here.
The crab rangoon, right? It's fabulous. Well, come on, let's go.
Yeah. After all this, you sit there and wait, because here it's like, you know, he gets up. I'll be right back. And typically you get up and you go off and the game starts, right? But you have the option of just sitting there and staying, and I think it's like 15 minutes passes. And then he's like, okay, come on, let's go. You get up.
You know, part of me is surprised your mother asked for you to bring her all the way back here. Thank you, Kamran.
You want me to follow you?
Jesus Christ, yes, boy, the ashes aren't going to scatter themselves. Did your mother ever tell you about your father?
Never, no.
Mohan, the great protector of the Golden Path.
I don't want to get in trouble. He uses a no word, but yeah, it just like plays out, and then you get to go here, and yeah, in loving memory of Lakshmana. Yeah, look at that, Lakshmana Min. You put the urn up, and then credits roll. It's a secret ending. I thought something like that had happened with Hellblade 2. I thought I'd run into a secret ending, and it ended way before I thought it was supposed to. Because I was like, this is a sequel. It's probably going to be like at least the same, if not a little longer than the first game. But nope. Nope. I was wrong. Still can't believe this is Troy Baker. Dude, Troy Baker is so good. He's very talented. For sure. Let me catch up on these super chats real quick. Hey Luke, I've been playing Avowed and actually enjoyed it quite a lot. Been fortunate not to encounter any major bugs or anything. Yeah, I think the day one patch did a lot of heavy lifting, thankfully, which is great to see. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Woonskibik, thank you for that super chat. Did you hear the rumors about Half-Life 3 nearing the end of development? This version was reportedly survived 8 or 5 years and is unlikely to be canceled. I will believe it when I see it. Because straight up, I saw somebody on X, they took it, that story, and then they linked another article posted in like 2018 that was almost like word for word the same thing. They're like, ooh, a secret project that's been in the works for years is expected to release, and it's going to be Half-Life 3, and we're pretty sure this is it. So I'll believe it when I see it. Hopefully it is real, but I don't know. There's a tweet from the dev saying around 30 hours for main story. Yes. And I hope it hits that. And it sounds like replay value is also pretty high because of the different builds. So yeah, I think I still will mentally tell myself 10 hours. So when I get to 30, I'm all the more excited. I think that's what I'm just going to tell myself in my brain. Toxic, thank you for this super chat. It's my birthday. I'm 30 today. Paying you to wish me a happy birthday. This game looks awesome, TBH. Happy birthday, Toxic. Happy 30th. That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm on my way to 30 as well. So I'll join you soon enough, I'm sure. But happy birthday, everybody in chat. Happy birthday to Toxic. Big 3-0. Ooh, baby. Ooh, baby. You're on your way. You're on your way. Problem is, once you turn 25, there's no like big milestone birthdays. I guess when you turn 50, you get the excuse to have a midlife crisis and you can like buy a boat or something. But until then, there's just like nothing cool between like 30 and 50, you know? It's just like working and living. Maybe we need to do that. Maybe we need to invent a holiday or like something when you're 35, just to break it up, you know? Something like that. We'll figure it out. The sad 40s. Yeah, well, that's why I'm saying, like, you gotta have a midlife crisis is at least fun, you know, because you get to be a little reckless, and everybody's like, yeah, well, he's trying to come to grips with his, you know, being 50. So, you know, at least you can have fun that way. But 30, 40, you're just kind of doing life. Okay. I want to talk about this one. Let's talk about this real quick. I'm so hungry, dude. News segment. Are you ready? We've talked on stream a ton about how frustrating the current state of the industry is in many ways. I mean, not just stuff like, you know, cancellations, layoffs, thousands of people losing their jobs because management is idiotic. But also just like, even on a technological level, it feels like this generation has been kind of a letdown, you know, like if we get big ambitious games from first party studios, a lot of the time they're cross-platform or rather cross-generational. A lot of them are not graphically that impressive. They run like garbage. We just, of course, had the launch of Monster Hunter Wilds, which is sitting at like only at the time of the stream at like 56% positive reviews, meaning 44% of reviews are negative because of the performance, because it runs so terribly on PC. And it's really frustrating because it feels like at this point in the generation, bear in mind, we're in the year of our Lord Todd Howard, 2025. This generation is going on 5 years. At this point in the PS4 generation, we had gotten like Bloodborne, Uncharted 4. We were on our way to like, you know, what was like 2017, 18, 2017. What was in 2017? I feel like, I guess Horizon, we had that. We were about to get God of War 2018. We were seeing previews of that. We had just gotten a trailer for The Last of Us Part 2 because they dropped that trailer 4 years early for some reason. Metal Gear Solid 5. Yeah, The Witcher 3. Red Dead 2 was on its way. Yeah, we had Breath of the Wild technically. So like by this point, last gen, we had a ton of pretty heavy hitters. And to be fair, we've gotten a couple. We've gotten, you know, I like Monster Hunter when it is running well. KCD 2, phenomenal. Love that game. That was just, you know, a month or two ago. So I guess a month ago. I've had it they gave it to me January 4th. So I've had it for 2 months, but I guess it launched a month ago. But, you know, I at least feel like this generation has not been that impressive, that exciting. And I saw this video pop up from the Digital Foundry guys, who of course analyze graphics and the technology behind these games. And so I'm interested in hearing their thoughts if they think that, as the title describes, our current generation graphics a bit of a letdown, because I feel like this is a sentiment that's echoed by many people, and even in chat right now you guys are expressing similar sentiments. But I'm wondering if that's just the perception, but maybe not the reality. You know, it's like when you feel like the world is ending because you're seeing tons of videos of everything, like on TikTok or YouTube Shorts or something, and all the videos are of horrible things happening. But then you remember, like, oh no, this is just the bubble I'm being presented. In reality, it's not actually the world's ending. It's just I'm only seeing that stuff. Maybe it's something like that where it's just twisted perception. But I want to hear their thoughts. So let's see.
Quite often in my YouTube recommended feed, I see videos pop up with title like issues with modern game graphics or insert franchise graphics getting worse. What are your thoughts on this phenomenon? Feels like an especially strong feeling this generation that games don't look better than they did last gen, which is wild considering the leap in compute. But I certainly do feel underwhelmed by the performance or visuals of games this generation often as well. The PS5's GPU is far beyond the PS4's, but how often do games look that much better?
I think a lot of this, and we'll hear what they say, but my guess is that a lot of this comes down to where the priority has been. Because I feel like in the PS4 era, the big step up was with scale and scope and the open world trend becoming much bigger than it was in the like PS3 360 era. And so there was possibility for things to take big leaps forward. But this generation, the focus has been on like ray tracing, which is exponentially heavier to run and requires and mandates like upscalers and all sorts of tricks to get it to actually work. And ray tracing just as a function of a graphical equation, like it's just not as impactful as something like physics sim with destructible environments or bigger, more dense foliage and things that are much more easy to spot compared to like more realistic shadows. So I think that's a big part of it, but we'll see what they say.
What do you reckon about this, John? I mean, the phenomenon of this particular type of video is gaining traction, that's for sure.
For sure.
And there is kind of like, what can we say? I think from my perspective, developers are looking to innovate and improve graphics in ways that are quite extraordinary, but beyond the technical leap of the hardware that's been delivered to them. And the result of that is that you get this improvement to visuals, but it does come with a cost, which I think is maybe what's causing this stuff. But I'm curious what you think about this.
Correct. And I think it's a multi-pronged approach. And first, I would say that we are in sort of a state of growth in terms of graphics technology. And this is a state of growth that we've been in many times before, such as when 3D was first introduced to the world. It was very rough early on, but it was a necessary, difficult step to get there. During the PS360 generation, that was also a very difficult time. That was when we saw the rise of modern programmable pixel shaders, vertex shaders, and a lot of other modern techniques, real-time shadow maps everywhere, real-time lighting. But in many ways, it could be argued it looked worse than the generation that came before it. Now I think we're facing a multitude of problems that are all kind of coalescing together to create sort of something that I can see someone perceiving as a step back. First of all,
I mean, real quick, just initially, I like the idea, and I think it makes sense that perhaps we're in a bit of a transitionary period. Because, I mean, with certain things, we clearly are. I mean, ray tracing, love it or hate it, it's the new staple. You know, if rasterized rendering used to be the main way of doing things, now ray tracing is the expected level they want to hit. That's the goal. And you're seeing it, you know, even from like NVIDIA, and to a certain extent with NVIDIA and AMD GPUs, whatever they want to focus on is kind of where everybody else has to follow. And it's kind of this dual thing where NVIDIA and AMD are trying to design chips that work with the vision that game designers have, because they want game designers to obviously be able to make the game look great on their hardware that they're selling. So it's kind of this dance between the two, kind of this symbiotic relationship. But if the industry more broadly is moving towards ray trace everything, upscale everything, then that's just what you're going to do. And because we're in the early stages, it's reasonable to expect that it's going to get better, and we will eventually be at a point where its performance is not dog water at all times. But yeah, I guess that's a more hopeful message as opposed to just publishers are trying to cut corners now.
You look back to say, one example that always springs to mind is something like Uncharted 4. Especially, I'm going to point out there's this room at the end during the epilogue to the game that is often highlighted as like, look at this is amazing. And it absolutely is. The reason it looks so amazing is because they have pre-calculated some beautiful lighting, and that combined with, of course, the artistry of the team that worked on the game, right? So this is like you're starting from this point. You have this beautiful area, beautiful room specifically. So what modern technology is trying to do, obviously, is, okay, can we reach this fidelity, but actually generate it in real time? That's where we're moving towards. But why do you want to do it in real time? Well, one, that makes the actual lighting a lot more flexible in terms of what you can do with it. If it's just a single room like that, that's fine. Maybe you don't need it, but in a lot of cases, it can be very beneficial to gameplay because it allows for a more dynamic scene, especially once you start to tie in actual moving objects, physics-based objects, other enemies. Those things do not integrate naturally within those scenes. So that famous scene at the end of Uncharted, there's really nothing in there except for your character model walking around. And so as a result, they don't have to worry about that. Which, of course, that opens another can of worms in terms of scoping your project based on what you're trying to do artistically, right? And all throughout history, there have been games that have attempted to push technology in one way or the other, and maybe they don't get the balance right. And they create something using technology that maybe they didn't need in the first place, right? That's a whole separate other thing.
I do think he's right, though. Like, if we're pointing to something like The Last of Us Part 2, which was on the base PS4. I mean, you could play that on a 2013 device. I just wrote The Last of Sus. That's a game I didn't know I needed. Can you imagine? The Last of Sus. Gameplay trailer. Here it is. You look at this. This footage is insane. Even today, if this trailer dropped today in a PlayStation showcase, people would be like, wow, this is going to be one of the best looking games of this year. And this is from a trailer dropped in June of 2018. At this point in the generation, from the PS4 era, okay? This is running on hardware that was considered kind of weak for 2013, okay? It's amazing. Technically, I guess this is running on like probably the newer version of the Slim or whatever it was. But still, I mean, graphically, stunning. But a lot of the reason they could do this is because they were able to bake everything in. And it works for a game like this because the environment's not changing. If you stay in this level as Ellie and just crawl under the truck and stay put, there is no day-night cycle. You know, the weather's not going to roll in. The sun's not going to rise or set. It is what it is. The level is static. And it works for a game like this because you can bake in all of the lighting and you can set it up this way. But a lot of these games nowadays are focused on dynamics. They're focused on things constantly changing. And the reason they focus on that is because they can with the technologies that have presented themselves with ray tracing and stuff. Something like, you know, even Monster Hunter Wilds with dynamic weather systems, or Assassin's Creed Shadows. The whole focus is on different seasons. So the season changes constantly, which is why they can't just bake in lighting the way that they used to in previous games. And I think that's part of the reason why people are looking at games that are releasing today and then they're like, this game looks better. And it does. But it's because in this game, all of that calculation's been done months ago, years ago, when they were designing the levels and baking all of the lighting in. Whereas nowadays, everything is about real time. And that means that it runs worse, That means that it often looks a bit worse because it just does. But the hope is, and I get what John and the guys at DF are saying, the goal is to eventually be able to get to that level of fidelity consistently with full dynamics. So you could have Last of Us 2 quality, but with full ray tracing and real time everything. So you could have a day and night cycle. You could do all of that stuff and it would be totally fine. So I understand again why, but it doesn't mean I have to like it. With a lot of these games nowadays, I'm like, I would have like, take your ray tracing. I don't need it. Give me rasterized baked lighting and I'll be happy. But maybe that makes me a boomer.
That's a problem. So part of the problem though, with that sort of target, moving those things to real time is great. It also facilitates easier development for things like lighting artists and building these environments. But of course, you know, with ray tracing and all that, it has a computational cost, which we're seeing. And this has never not been a problem on consoles, and it's still a problem on consoles, in that in order to achieve this, you have to make sacrifices. In the past, that would be things like frame rate and just like raw, you know, resolution and such. But obviously there has been a resurgence in, not resurgence, there has been an upswell in this use of reconstruction, temporal anti-aliasing, things designed to sort of minimize pixel popping and improve the overall stability of an image. But in this pursuit of performance using these demanding techniques, I would say a lot of developers do go a little bit too hard on it. And one perspective that, so this means image quality then suffers, right? That is.
And I think especially it's perhaps the force or the bigger problem behind it is that executives and publishers see it as an opportunity to cut corners on polish. Because instead of optimizing your game, you can just shove it out and turn on frame generation, Monster Hunter, and then call it good. Because like, yeah, we technically hit 60 frames. And it's like, did you though? Did you? Like, you're rendering at 25 and then you're inserting these generated frames to hit like 50 something. Your game's not optimized, you know? And as a result, I think you're seeing this thing that leads to situations where devs are not happy with the state their games are in. You know, they're not pleased with it, but executives feel they can get away with releasing it as is. And I mean, Monster Hunter's the perfect example of it. Like, do you really think the devs had no idea the game ran badly on PC and everywhere, frankly? No, they knew. They probably were asking for more time. But Capcom said, no, you're going to release it and people will still buy it. And it seems they were right. People are still buying it like crazy because it just is what it is. Thank you, Kia, by the way, for the sub with Prime. Thank you.
Is the big thing. This image instability. People are picking up on it, and they're not wrong. The rise of these techniques, things like denoising not being great in Unreal Engine 5, especially with like their default denoiser. You know, you have the temporal anti-aliasing issues, you have the upsampling issues. All of these things by themselves can be solved with more input data, but because they're being pushed to this limit, everything kind of gets noisy, right? And this also varies depending on the type of screen you're using. Like on PC, I've had arguments over DLSS before where they're like, oh, I don't like it, it's smeary, it's no.
Yeah, dude, especially when you look at this footage and you compare it to some of those older games, it's just night and day. Like, especially you look at the ground. This is on fidelity mode on the Series S, and it's the Series S to be fair, but maybe that's a more fair comparison because the Series S is more, it's closer to what like the PS4 was that was running that Last of Us clip we saw. And it wasn't having anywhere near this many problems with things just looking grainy and rough. And bear in mind, Dragon Age Veilguard was actually very well optimized, but it was optimized using these tools that I think leave a bit to be desired.
Noisy. And I'm talking from the perspective of being lucky enough to use a native 4K screen. They're using a 1080p screen. That matters a lot in terms of what the base input resolution is going to be, and it really does impact image quality. So there's that. The other point I would say about visuals as a whole is that this takes people to make. This stuff is generated by real humans. We've reached a point where fidelity is so high in games, and has been for so long, that just creating these assets is extremely expensive and time consuming. And not all artists are the same in terms of their skill set as well. So I saw somebody complaining that something like Avowed didn't look as good as Uncharted 4 or Red Dead Redemption 2. And they were really incensed about that. Like, how can this be a downgrade? This is a new generation.
That is something I've heard too, and it does kind of trigger me a little bit when you're like, hey, this game from a smaller studio is not on par with the game made by, like, 2,000 people in the case of Red Dead, or in the case of like Uncharted 4. Yeah, Uncharted 4 is a graphical powerhouse, but it's also not like a semi-open world adventure RPG. They're different. I think we're comparing apples to apples in a generation, especially. We should be able to bring up price points and stuff, because if you're asking $70, but you're not putting forward comparative $70 quality, then I think it's fair to throw a fit. Like Avowed, I think, is a solid game you can have a lot of fun with, especially through Game Pass. I would not pay $70 for it, but on Game Pass, I think it makes a lot of sense. But anyway, that's sort of beside the point. Continue.
But that bumps up against this whole issue with manpower and like what people can realistically achieve and budgets and all these other things. So it's not even the technology anymore that's impacting the visual presentation, right? You can't look at one of the most revered development studios in the world with infinite resources like Rockstar. They were able to pour everything they had into making Red Dead Redemption 2. Most studios could never dream of having that talent of people, that pool of talent, that sort of budget, that amount of time to make these games. And that's what was necessary to get there. So, something like Avowed has to leverage new technologies like, Lumen, Nanite, and what that to sort of push its graphics game up a bit while still having constraints in other areas. So I think it's just a whole mix of these all issues coalescing together. And the fact that diminishing returns is, I would say, kind of real to a point. And that also ties in again back to the whole real-time versus baked kind of stuff that we've been able to achieve great looking visuals for so long. So, and then lastly, everybody has a different eye for things. Like what my eye focuses on, what you see in a scene and what you appreciate can be totally different to what somebody else sees. Like the things that annoy us might not annoy another person, right? Like you have little frame inconsistencies, like little frame time spikes. There's a lot of people that do not care. They don't notice it. That's where the whole runs fine on my PC thing comes from, right? But they might
Thank you. Yes. Because you'll see people who like are playing Monster Hunter and they're like, I can't frankly see the problems with textures. I don't know what you guys are talking about. And it's not that they're like special. It's not that they have a special version of the game. It's that like they just don't notice it. They just can't see it. I was just talking to a buddy of mine the other day, like 2 days ago. And he was saying, I've done the YouTube videos. I've done the side-by-side tests. He's like, I straight up, my brain does not like process the difference between 30 and 60. Like when they're both on screen at the same time, I can tell the difference, but I can't tell the difference if you play a 30 frame clip and then you play a 60 frame per second clip. He's like, I wouldn't be able to tell you which one. I was like, okay. I mean, some people are like that, I guess. I saw it when we were doing demos of like high-end TVs when I worked at Best Buy in the Magnolia Home Theater, where we had all these demos specific for like selling people on this idea to go and buy the $2,000 TV or the $3,000 or $4,000 TV. It's like, look how much better this screen is compared to this one. Like we would show them an OLED next to an edge-lit TV. Not even like a really backlit TV, but like an edge-lit panel that looked like crap. The kind of TV that like the blacks on screen, if it's got like black bars on the top and bottom of the actual frame, those are like light gray because the lighting behind the screen, or on the side of the screen rather, is so poor. And we would do these side-by-side demos, and every once in a while we'd get somebody that could not tell the difference. Or they'd think that the other one looked better because it was brighter. And it's like, as a TV salesman, it's just the most triggering thing you've ever heard. You show them this beautiful, masterfully crafted OLED panel, and then they're like, I don't know. I like that Toshiba over there that you have on clearance. I think that looks better. And I'm like, get out of here. Get out of my face. Get out of my sight. But some people are like that. They just straight up can't tell. Or they don't care, And I honestly, I think you're right, Jean. blindness is bliss. I kind of wish my brain worked that way, because imagine how much cheaper life would be if you didn't care. You know, it's like the people, imagine getting to ride in a McLaren and then getting to sit in like a 1992 Honda Civic. And, you know, the Civic has like 300,000 miles. And then you ride like 10 miles in each of them. And the person goes, yeah, I think the Civic. So the Civic is the sports car. Like, imagine how much easier life would be if you honestly like just, yeah, I think the Civic sounds great. Yeah, that thing's badass. Did you hear the sound it made when we started going uphill in a 3-degree incline? Man. Hey, don't knock my Civic. Dude, I never had a Civic. I had an Accord. And prior to that, I drove a 1996 Volvo station wagon that low-key kind of looked like a hearse, but that thing was great. That thing struggled, though. You would go uphill and you weren't sure if you were ever getting up there because it was fighting for its life, man. You know, oh man, those old cars had character. They had character, you know. They had character. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah, the people who don't tell the difference or can't see the details or the things that you're pointing out, and they like then try to accuse you of being unreasonable because like, I don't know. I think I don't know what you're talking about, that the McLaren drives better than the 92 Civic. Yeah, I think you're making that up, man. My Civic's way better. You know, it's like, okay. Yeah, I'm envious. I think life would be way easier if I were able to go through life that way. But anyway, going back to what he was saying.
Really dislike the way smearing looks from, you know, temporal anti-aliasing and reconstruction, especially when used on a lower res monitor.
Everything looks blurry
and that's
now.
all they can see when they look at that screen. The rest of it doesn't matter. They see that smearing. That's what they're laser focused on. They don't like it. And they're not wrong either. Like, that's absolutely their prerogative to do it. So I think all of this stuff together has created this whole situation where, yeah, there's a subset of people that think games can look worse or haven't really evolved, even though technically they have. And I think it's just going to continue to get quote unquote worse given how all of this works together. I don't know. Was that coherent enough?
I tracked. I think that made sense. As for whether it gets worse, I mean, I think now there's more attention to it. It's sort of like, you know, you start looking for the thing and then you notice it everywhere you go. You start looking for white pickup trucks and you see white pickup trucks everywhere you go. So in this case, we start to like look for graphical shortcomings in games that are using the temporal, you know, solutions for upscaling and anti-aliasing and stuff. And you start to see it everywhere you look. So I think there's more eyes on it. People are looking more closely for it, which is part of the reason it feels overwhelmingly common. But beyond that, I think there's an aspect of this where I think perception is reality, and if everybody is agreeing that games do not look graphically as good as they need to or should, that's what you have to deal with. And in this case, I think people look at something like KCD2 and they're like, wow, look how sharp the image is. Look how dense the foliage is. Look at all this. It's stunning. I want this, you know? That's, I think, the main takeaway. And, you know, if a company is able to come along, as we saw with KCD2, and they say, no, we optimized it without upscalers, so the game can run good natively on your hardware. That should be a wake-up call to devs that that's what gamers are connecting with. That's what they're liking. So start optimizing that way. We're at a point where optimization is a major selling point, and it's sad because that should be a given. But nowadays, you're seeing people that are buying games just because they're optimized, because like, finally, a game that runs well and looks good. Let's get into it. So hopefully, you know, it's something that the market kind of takes care of. It rewards the people that are actually polishing and refining stuff, and then continues to punish people that don't.
I think it's such a holistic issue, and you gave a whole bunch of different points about it as to why it is the way it is, and I think that covers like almost every single basis. I would only add two things. You covered everything that I would have said. I would have added only that since this is about YouTube videos, that there's an angle to this about making profit online, and being really negative and drama stirring is a huge profit angle. The grift is real. And so people want to make money. And so you'll see a lot of negative videos, even about topics that you would be surprised that there's a negative video about it. It's just a really good way to get people to talk and look at your video. But the second thing I would add to is just game stylization has changed over time.
I mean, I guess to tackle the like grift aspect of it, there's some cases where you definitely see people that are like trying to stir up that games that don't look bad, and it's like, we're trying really, really hard, I think, right now. I saw some people, you know, going back to KCD2 as an example of people pointing to that, and they're trying to stir up drama, claiming that the game actually looks terrible, and then when people actually get their hands on it, they see it doesn't, and so they kind of move on to the next topic. AC Shadows has been another one. Say what you will about AC Shadows, it's graphically pretty damn impressive. I think the thing I've been so far, like in the previews and trailers and stuff, not as impressed by was like lip sync, for example, or like facial animations during side quest conversations. But on the whole, I think it's graphically really impressive, especially the environments, grass, foliage, all that stuff, the wind and the physics sim and all that stuff is really impressive. So when you start to see people trying to claim that the game looks like a PS2 game or a PS3 game, I'm like, no, Rise of the Ronin looked like a PS3 game. AC Shadows, it might have plenty of other problems, but it's not on that same level. Yeah, Star Wars Outlaws environments in Star Wars Outlaws look pretty good. Faces, not great. Definitely a weak point. So fair point. Stylization. This is maybe also, I think he's going to bring up, or he's about to bring up, the fact that so many more games nowadays are going for more of like a photorealism as opposed to something a little bit more stylized, which is also probably why some of the stuff is becoming more apparent, but let's see.
Thing I would add to is just game stylization has changed over time. Like the type of games, we talked about this back when there was this uproar about Far Cry 5 looking worse than Far Cry 2 or whatever. And, you know, games went from being very dynamic, real-time lighting, simulation heavy to being...
Silver Lightning, good to see you. 11 months. Ooh, baby. Oh, you're at GDC right now, so anyone wants to keep an eye out for any specific game reveals, let me know. I'll report back. Let me know if you see anything about Crimson Desert. If you hear any rumblings about Switch stuff, I'm interested in that, if there's any rumblings about that. What's something else? What would be something fun? Oh, and anything about Mafia. If there's anything about Mafia, I want to know. Oh, will do. It's in 2 weeks, by the way. Okay, I was gonna say, I'm surprised I'm not hearing anything about it right now. Yeah, when you go to GDC, like Mafia stuff, I'm interested in that.
As in what was the AAA trend, to being very much so about like focused narrative experiences that were more akin to Hollywood movies in a lot of ways, and like linear corridors. And there's this tension, because if you want to have ultra baked lighting like an Uncharted Forest end scene there, well then the entire scene can't be moving, right? So but what if a dev wants things to be moving because it's more their prerogative for their game design? Well, then they have to lean into other technologies and visuals that make that possible. And as a result of this tension, sometimes when people think things look worse, they're actually talking about entirely different game designs. And I don't think those comparisons should be made apple to apple there.
I understand what he's saying, but I also think this is reminding me of when I was talking about AC Valhalla. Sorry.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Have to be respectful. When we were talking about AC Valhalla, and I was saying I think that AC Valhalla has a really boring open world where it's just like really flat, basic forests, some snowy areas, but in large part, you're just kind of like, there's nothing really interesting to parkour through. You're just kind of riding your horse through fields and forests nonstop. And the world is just kind of uninteresting, which I think they realized, which is why they did so many like the Smurf levels and they added a bunch of other stuff. But I stand by that. I think the open world in Valhalla is not that interesting. Sorry, Valhalla. And somebody commented, were like, well, but the game is set in England. That's just what England is like. Yes, I agree. But you get to choose where your game is, what your game is about, what the setting is. Like, you get to choose that stuff. That's up to you. Nobody made you do it. So in this case, where it's the conversation over like, well, the scene is moving, and so we can't use rasterized baked lighting. We have to use ray trace stuff, or we have to do this technique or that technique. I get it. I understand. But I didn't make you make the scene move. I didn't force you to do that. That was your choice. And a consequence of that choice is that now we can't use these other techniques, and therefore the game might not look as good as if we did it this other way. So I understand maybe he's pointing out that like you have to compare apples to apples to the extent that if you're going to look at a game that has the static lighting and you can bake it, compare modern games that do that to older games that do that, and then compare modern dynamic games to older dynamic games if there are any. And I can understand that, but I don't think that's necessarily a refutation or a counter to the frustration people have had, because ultimately it's the devs who are still just like deciding and choosing to make those scenes dynamic when they could have had them static and just reworked things to get it where it needs to be. Happy Mario, because of the setting, is not an excuse for boring environments and level design. Well, and ultimately, if your setting requires you to make it boring, like choose a different setting. If we make a video game, and it's set in like a dentist's waiting room, and then all the reviews are saying, hey, the environment is super boring. It's just like a waiting room at a dentist's office. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's what dentist offices are like. Have you ever been to one? Hello. You'd be like, you should have set it somewhere else. That was your choice. You could change it. Why did you do it? Yeah, it was just a weird choice, man. So yeah, I've never found that to be a particularly compelling counter when people are like, well, that's just how it's meant to be that way. I'm like, okay. It's the same thing people said when I did that big critique of Death Stranding. And I said, some of the writing is bafflingly bad. Like, there will be a 35-minute cutscene of just rambling. Like at the very end, when what's her name is just pacing back and forth and you're sitting on the beach, literally in purgatory, and she's just rambling at you, mostly stuff that you've already seen and heard. And you can rewrite that dialogue into like 3-4 sentences and communicate the same exact thing. But with Kojima, it's like a 30-minute cutscene, 35-minute cutscene. Or cutscene. Technically, you can move the camera and stuff, but you know, you get what I mean. It's dialogue. It's a scene. And I had people commenting on that critique, being like, well, it's supposed to make you feel like you were also trapped, just like Sam Porter-Bridge. And like, so it's meant to make you feel that way. So it's actually this choice he made to make it feel boring and to make you mentally disconnect and check out. I'm like, okay, I don't like that choice. I disagree with the choice. It was a bad choice. Like, just because somebody made an active choice does not mean I therefore have to go, okay, well, then they're free from criticism. They're immune from critique. Like, why is there an actual turd in my sandwich? Oh, well, we chose to do that. Okay, wrong choice, bad choice. I don't like that. Bad choice. Just because you made a choice does not mean that therefore you're free from feedback, you know?
They're apple to orange at that point, and it's always good to have context.
Yeah, anyway, we were talking about graphics in video games, and I ended up with a turd in a sandwich.
Minus what type of game we're talking about before we start comparing,
live, gents.
I don't know, Red Dead Redemption 2 versus something else, right?
Yep.
And that was a really great point of yours about budget and Avowed. It was
also,
really
Alex, I would say...
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a little asinine to compare like Red Dead to like a budget or a more budget, smaller team game. They both do cost AAA dollars, which to a certain extent you can say like, therefore Avowed is a bad value because it's so far behind what Red Dead 2 offers. Or you can flip it the other way and just say the fact that Red Dead only costs $60, $70 is a testament to how amazing a value that is and why you should buy that. So maybe that's Maybe that's the counter, you know. Maybe that's how you flip it. Maybe that's the way. Let's see. Oh, Corkscrew, thank you. Very generous. Your stream is like chatting with a buddy over coffee. No drama, chill, straight talk. Keep it up, and thank you. Thank you, my friend. Thank you. And I appreciate you guys being here and allowing me to ramble. And then we also get to have conversations through chat. We get to hang out. That's great. I love that. Because people will ask me, like, why do you stream on vacation? Why do you stream when you travel places? I'm like, because I honestly like it. Like, I enjoy this. This is what I do also for fun. We did this for like 2-3 years before we broke even, because I was having Jacob edit stream clips and stuff, not even factoring in like the time I was burning and the other things I could be doing to earn money while doing these streams. But we did it for years before even turning the point where we were breaking even. Because I like it. I like hanging out with you guys, you know? Yeah, allowing Luke to ramble like he's a character in Death Stranding. Dude, when Death Stranding, that's another game that's supposed to come out this year, right? When that game comes out, maybe we will do that. We're like playing it on stream, and every time there's a rant with one of the characters, because there's going to be a lot, maybe I have to counter that, almost like a parry, with my own rant. And I just have to try to come up with as much nonsense as I can as I pace back and forth. We could do that. Well, interestingly, though, Jor, and I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in chat, because I'm honestly curious. Jor is convinced that Death Stranding 2 is going to be like a pretty significant letdown. From what I recall, I'm pretty sure that's what he said. Don't like fully quote me. But he was basically like, Death Stranding 1 didn't like melt the world in terms of sales. And he's like, I don't think Death Stranding 2 appeals to more people than the first game. He's like, and I think a lot of people who played the first game and fell off of it because it was like a UPS delivery man simulator with some really rough dialogue. He's like, I don't think that this game being even weirder with a talking puppet and stuff is going to win those people over again. And I was like, I haven't really thought about how I expect Death Stranding 2 to do. Obviously, like, it's not getting the same like console exclusive treatment that the first game did, as far as I'm aware. I think it's open to going to PC and stuff. But I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it in terms of how it's going to perform. I'm not sure. I think the weirdness might draw in more people. I'm honestly not sure. I think a lot of what they showed, it looks good. It looks like they've perhaps learned from the first game and are expanding it. But I think a lot of people kind of chose what they thought of Death Stranding last time around. And so it'll be interesting if this game does enough to win people over who passed the first time around. Because I think that's what it needs to do. And maybe it's just with bigger environments, with cooler gameplay mechanics and stuff like that. Maybe that's how they win people over. But we'll just have to see. They're going to do some big reveal, I think, relatively soon. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyway, wrap this up. Let's see.
On top of that, people are asking for more interactivity in games, more simulation. We certainly are. This is key to getting there, right? It went away for a reason, and it's because of this rise of all this advanced baked lighting, physically based materials, everybody trying to make these things look super realistic and good, and they got there. But I think something like the Order 1886 was one of the first to really do it. It's a perfect example of those limitations. It looks insanely good even today, but it is like extremely static. Everything is locked in, and game design actually followed this trend by and large for many, many years. And we've not gotten back to the simulation heavy stuff that we'd like to see, but all this real-time rendering, this is key to getting there. Without it, you're stuck.
Which it's an interesting perspective to view it as growing pains to get to something better, where it's like we're building to a more dynamic, flexible world where you could have games that are doing way more dynamically and still look great. And so maybe this is just a growing pain to get to that point, and that's why it feels rough now. But once the technologies are mature, it'll be awesome. It's an interesting thought. And I like it. I think the key though with this is like the move that he brought up earlier, the move from 2D to 3D, when there were similar growing pains like this, or the shift from some of the technologies in the PS2 era to the PS3 era, those shifts were visually, significant, and they were tied to the technologies they were developing. And once they got to the point where they started doing it and seeing the benefits of it, they eventually polished it up and got it to the point where they were able to have optimized games that ran well and looked really, really good. But there wasn't like a lot of incentive from executives to cut those corners. In fact, there was kind of the opposite, where like the people greenlighting these projects were trying to get the games on the graphical level they needed to be as quickly as they could. Whereas right now, it feels like the biggest problem, at least for me in the industry, is that there is an active incentive for a lot of these companies to use temporal upscalers, for example, to not optimize their games because they can save money by cutting that corner and just rely on frame generation and upscalers to get performance where it needs to be. And I think Monster Hunter is the most recent perfect example of that, where they could have delayed the game by 3-4 months, polished it, gotten it running better, and then put it out. But instead they launch it early before it's really set and where it needs to be, in my opinion, especially for mid and low grade or low tier hardware. But they put it out because they think they can just get away with it. They prompt you when you boot up the game the first time and they say enable frame generation, because they're hoping that for the average consumer, they won't notice the difference and they won't notice that it's running poorly, and they just move on from there, and I honestly don't know if it's one-to-one, because I think right now I'm trying to think of what pushes the big publishers into optimizing their games versus just doing what they're doing now, which is putting out stuff that's not well optimized, runs like crap. And really the only thing that happens and the only thing that leads to any change is money and voting with your wallet. But the thing is, like, these big games, whether it's Jedi Survivor or it's Monster Hunter Wilds, you have games that are not optimized, that run like crap, that they put out anyways because they know people will still buy it. And they're not wrong, But interesting conversation. Let me know what you guys think. Fearless Wolf, thank you for the 2. Thank you for that. Will AC Shadows kill the franchise if it fails? Depends on what you mean by fails. As I've alluded to, I can't imagine a world in which it's so bad it kills the franchise. Like that industry analyst, he said that, I forget who he worked for, but one of those industry analysts that looked at all this stuff, he guesstimated that based on the amount of money that these franchises generate, AC and Rainbow Six, just those IP should be worth over $7 billion. A good amount of that being Assassin's Creed. People who are not Assassin's Creed players don't realize how freaking gigantic those games are. Assassin's Creed as just a franchise is huge. It's like people that don't play FIFA and then, or I guess now FC. It's like when they don't realize how big that franchise is. It's like, no, that game makes billions of dollars. It's like, what? I've never bought one. Yeah, but a lot of people do. Then a lot of people spend all their money on it. So like AC Shadows is huge in terms of scope and scale, and they also hope to generate a lot of money long term. Valhalla made over $1 billion, and that was as of a couple of years ago. Mirage sold millions of copies. So I don't see a world in which like AC goes away or anything. Like AC still has a dedicated fan base. The point is with Shadows, all like really at the end of the day, all that's going to happen, there's kind of two outcomes. Ubisoft postpones a potential taking of the company private to maybe even a buyout. They postpone that, and it just continues being business as usual for the next few years. That's if AC Shadows does really, really well. If it does pretty well, or even okay, all the way down to like terrible, I think it still will lead them to a situation where Tencent comes with some management cooperative agreement with the Guillemot brothers to either take the company private or to restructure it, because they just as a financial firm, there's just some problems with how they're structured and some problems with how they have been running things. You know, industry analysts are saying, yeah, they have 20,000 employees. Based on the money they make, they should have maybe 10. And whenever you have an industry analyst saying, hey, we should cut 50% of the workforce at your company, that's a problem. I mean, that tells you that there's people out there that think there's an opportunity.
Nick Chivers donated £20 through Super Chat. Frank Zappa once said we were better off with the old guys who didn't know what was good. They just put stuff out and hope it did well. Now we have corporate jackoffs who claim they know what the kids will buy.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is when people get their face too close to the spreadsheet, you know? They stop wondering what's fun? What's a wacky idea that's just crazy? And what would I want to play? What's a game I would want to play? Let's make that. They kind of forget about all of that. And instead you start to feel this corporate soulless thing where it's like, well, this demographic is 55.4 million players, and we see that they engage with this type of mechanic this much, and this percentage of the time they're doing this, this, and this. So let's create a game with 10% this and 35% this. We put in 3% of that, and it becomes soulless, and players can feel that. You know, they feel when something's been made by committee, when it's being made by somebody that doesn't have a vision and are just trying to follow the corporate directive. And you know, it sucks any fun out of it. And I agree that that's a problem. Because back in the day, it was just, what's a fun game? Let's make a fun game. And I mean, let's bear in mind, like, okay, well, maybe we release it on PC versus the Mac 2 or the Lisa, because there's no way we'll make a profit if we're releasing on the Lisa exclusively. You know, there were some business considerations, no doubt, way back in the day, but at the end of the day, I feel like game developers were primarily focused on just trying to make the coolest thing, and they weren't dealing with so much corporate oversight, which can stifle creativity, I think. But yeah, going back to what the initial prompt was from Fearless Wolf, I agree with the sentiment that a lot's riding on AC Shadows, but the franchise isn't riding on it. It's, even if Ubisoft imploded, the AC franchise would still get sold to somebody because it's so valuable, because there's so many people that play those games. So, you know, it's not anybody who's telling you like the AC Shadows or the Assassin's Creed franchise is like on the line. They either have no idea what they're talking about or they're lying, because the franchise is gigantic. It just is. Like, you don't have to play it for it to be massive and gigantic. I don't play FC. I don't play Madden, but one bad Madden release will not kill Madden. One terrible FC release will not kill FC. Like, those games and franchises are gigantic. So I'll just say that. What I think is the most likely outcome is AC Shadows releases. Probably does pretty good. They've got 300,000 pre-orders. It's about in line with AC Odyssey. AC Odyssey ended up doing pretty damn well, but it was a slow burn, especially over the long term. I think it's going to be the same thing with Shadows. It's going to do pretty well over time. And then beyond that, like, I think it'll do pretty well. It'll probably do about like Odyssey did. I don't think that's enough to hold off Tencent and investors, because I think investors smell and taste blood in the water. So I think, you know, what happens on a corporate business level is somewhat inevitable. But as for the game itself, like I think it'll probably do pretty good, you know. But we'll see. A lot of it depends on the reviews. If the reviews end up being really, really good, sweet. Like that could help them a lot. But I think unless it's in like the 90s or something, it's probably going to end up being received and selling pretty well. But then the same stuff's going to happen kind of no matter what. Kosh P, if you have like a white noise or a hiss with the SM7B going into the Go XLR, I would check very closely what your cable, your mic cable, is running next to. There's a strong chance you have it running close to like a power cable, even in the wall. I once had the cable running just next to, like along a wall. There was no outlet there, but there was a power cable running behind the wall, through the wall to an outlet nearby that I couldn't see. But because the cable was close to it, that was causing electrical interference and that hiss. So I would move the cable and it would go away. So that would be one thing to check. Beyond that, I don't think I have it in these drawers. But you can buy little ground hum eliminators. This one is a ground lift. And so it literally just plugs in right on the other end of the cable before it goes into the Go XLR. And it's designed to try and eliminate some of the ground hum. So you can buy one of these on Amazon for like $10. So there's tons of solutions, but I try something like that. First and easiest thing is just make sure it's not running next to any other power cables or anything like that, because that's going to cause interference. Okay. Let's see. And then Raphael, thank you for the 9 months of membership. Todd Howard Jr. is born. Weird jokes aside. I hope you and the chat have a great time. As always, praise be Todd Howard Jr. Praise be. Praise be. Can you say hi to Grandma for me? Yeah. Grandma, say hi. Yeah. The Dawn says hi. She says hi too. I don't know if you could hear that, but yeah. Okay. Well, fam, I got through everything I needed to get through. I also have a sore throat and I'm hungry as balls. So we'll call the stream there. Thank you for hanging out with me. You guys are amazing. Wonderful stream as always. You guys are tremendous. Thank you to all the subs. Thank you for all of the super chats, all of that stuff. It's tremendous. I hope to have an update for you guys on the new Discord stuff we're doing soon. And we should lock that in. We're just trying to figure out how to kind of set it up while we juggle all these other things, because we have some other big things in the works. Can't wait to share those. But until then, my friends, until next time, we'll be back Wednesday, rocking and rolling with a new video tomorrow. I wonder what that could be. I guess we'll have to see. Much love. I'll see you soon, guys. Bye-bye.